Hello and welcome to New Forest Morphs, and today we've got a very special guest and we're going to introduce them to you in a second. I'm just going to play the intro music and here we go. Quick welcome to Celtic Bulls. Thank you very much for joining us, and here we go. And I'm going to introduce you guys to, just bear with me a second. Here is Jace and Josh from Gen Z Reptiles. Welcome, guys, to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming over. Now, you guys are based in Iowa, and it's Is it Rapid?
It's Cedar Rapids.
Cedar Rapids, that's where it is, yeah. Okay, let's just have a quick look at what we've got going on here. Now, I've got a slideshow I'm going to just add to the screen here, see if we can do that. So, here we go. So, here's the first picture. Now, here we've got your new logo, and I understand that you guys designed it yourself?
That's correct, yeah. We put a lot of time into designing it ourselves. We had this idea in our heads for a while, and we chatted with a few people, and we just decided, you know what, we're going to learn how to do it, and we'll put it together ourselves. So
I'll tell you, it looks awesome. I just love the way you've got the snake creating the Z there. I think it's really, really cool.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you guys done a great job there. Now, I thought we'd just show and let everyone know the media that you guys are using. Now, you've got a YouTube channel that's been running for, is it just over a year now?
2 years now.
Is it 2 years? Let me see if I can share my screen, because I think I've got another computer that might be able to go onto your website. Let me see if I can do that. I'm still learning how to do all this, so just bear with me a second. Let's have a look. Now, there we go. There's your website. Can you guys see that okay? We
can. I'm hoping that the people in the chat can, but yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, let's just welcome a few people in the chat tonight. So we'll come back to your website in a second. So we've got a few people in the house coming on board. So we've got Jeff and Angie at Celtic Bulls. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yeah, we'll just put them on the screen there. We've also got Phil. Phil's in the house, Phil Snyder. So we'll welcome Phil. And,
welcome, Phil.
Yeah. And let's just go back to your, let me just bear with me a second. So I'm still learning how to use all this technology. Just bear with me. Oh, we've got someone else that's just joined us in the show. So let's have a look. We've got the old Devil Ball Pythons. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming through. And let me just, so we're going to talk about your YouTube site to start with, guys. Now, you've been doing this for 2 years. You've got 1.41, over 1,400 subscribers, which is fantastic. And you've been keeping reptiles for 17 years. Let's have a little look up there. Tell us a bit about your background, and I know you're both brothers. Who's the oldest of the two brothers?
I'm the oldest, yeah. I'm the oldest brother in the family, and Josh is actually the youngest. Yep. We've got a couple of brothers in between, and then we have an older sister as well. So
lovely.
In the family.
So there's 5 children in the family?
Yeah, that's correct.
Fantastic. I've got 5 children in my family as well. So Jared and I are father and son set up, and it's lovely to see 2 brothers coming together. And I think for many of us here that's been following you, you're a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned. And when I found your channel, I just really enjoy your channel so much because you've got so much positive energy. And I'd love very much if anyone who hasn't already followed your channel to jump on and give you guys some love and support, because it's just an amazing channel. The quality of what you're putting out, guys, is just first class.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, man. We really appreciate that. We put a lot of time into it, so we appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you later how you managed to make your thumbnails, because your thumbnails are cool. They're so good at drawing me in. It's brilliant. I need to do a little bit better on that side myself.
Yeah. So what do we use? We use Adobe Photoshop. We actually just purchased that recently, and I'm still trying to refine our logo making, just trying to figure out what the best setup is and what we want to go with. But yeah, we just use Adobe Photoshop. We're getting better and better as we go, but Josh has been the thumbnail guy. He's really taken on that project.
He's done a great job there. I mean, I've got my son Adam now starting to do my thumbnails, and he's doing the thumbnails for the live show. And I must apologize to everyone, because the initial one I got your names wrong, and I've corrected it now. So it's actually Jace and Josh, and my apologies if I sent out the wrong names earlier, but now you'll find that the new thumbnail is correct. But just looking at your screen here, you can see that the latest video you just put out tonight was the coolest dinkers, which we're going to talk about that tonight. So please stick around if you want to learn a little bit about the Dinka projects that these guys are doing. And also we're going to talk about how science can help us maybe pinpoint some of these hidden, what I call hidden treasures that are lying in the normal looking ball pythons. I actually think the value of those pythons with the right technical approach could actually come up quite a lot, because if a lot of them have got hidden genes and we use genetics to identify what's in them, if enough people send the shed skins to the is it East Michigan University, is it? I think that's where they're doing it.
That's one. I'm blanking on the name, but there's a university in Canada that's also working on that. But the East Michigan University, they have a very cool project going on.
Yeah, so at the moment they're working on some really beautiful recessive genes, but also I think that if they look at some of the potential Dinka projects where people start submitting their normal sheds, they may find some hidden treasures where certain genes that are not on their radar suddenly appear. And if they communicate with us, say for example there's 100 to 200 people that do this, and let's say they do a genetic test and they find there's 2 or 3 things going on with this unusual looking normal, and someone else has a similar unusual looking normal, and if they find out that the same genes are in those 2 unusual normals, instead of us trying to work out how to produce a visual in our Dinka project, we might be allowed to communicate with the other person that's holding the other gene and actually do some shared pairings, which might accelerate the projects quicker than our own facility. So I think potentially genetics could really open up a brand new world for... I actually think there's an infinite number of genes out there, if I'm honest with you. I don't think there's a limit to the number of genes this hobby has. And I think this genetic testing is going to open our eyes to the potential, I believe. It's my gut instinct.
Absolutely. So it'll bring a more calculated approach to finding the new genes, I feel like. And it brings up a whole new world of collaboration, like you said. If other people are carrying similar genes, then you get in contact. And if there's a friendly energy going on, definitely room for collaboration. But so I think, there's, with the ball pythons, it's all been guesswork, I feel like, for the most part. And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes things don't prove out. But yeah, like you said, the science behind it is definitely going to change the playing field.
Yeah. So later on, we're going to look at the Dinka projects. There's also some questions we've got, one or two of our viewers, and I'd like to welcome James to the show. So James Fitzpatrick, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you here. Now we've got, let me get my slideshow up if I may. There we go. So just coming back. Now you've got TikTok. You're into TikTok besides YouTube. So how's that going for you guys?
I would say it's going pretty decent. We're up to like 250,000 followers or something in that ballpark, but it's a different algorithm, that's for sure. A lot of like beginner people or people who aren't even in the industry are the main people following us on that platform.
Yeah, it feels like that's more of a purely entertainment platform for us. The videos that do the best on those are kind of like the surprising videos. We've shown some of our egg cutting video style shots on there, and people go crazy about that. So that's more of a entertainment, excitement type of platform, in our opinion.
Okay, that's very exciting. 250,000 followers on that. And how long have you been doing that now?
Probably like a year. Yeah, about a year. Yeah,
that's immense. That is incredible. I've just unbelievable. That is just an unbelievable. And it's all short, punchy videos, but you're probably hitting the younger generation. But I think this is a great way of getting the next generation into ball pythons as well, because we need to plant the seeds of interest. If they're watching some of your videos, then they are the future. So it's great that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, it's been a fun one, and that for me, I'm a very creative person, so that's like a good creative outlet for me, the TikToks, because it's different than putting together a YouTube video. It's just a very short video, and you get to try all sorts of different things out.
Yeah. Do you guys do a dance together when you do TikTok with a snake in each hand?
I mean, I've done a couple of dances. I don't know if it's up or not. But...
Oh, I'm tempted. I've got another screen here. I wonder if I could get one of your videos up here. I'm tempted. I mean, I've got a big wide screen here. Can I actually Google your channel on TikTok and get a live feed on it?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
Okay, I might just do that. While I'm going to have a go at doing that, let me just welcome Kaz to the show as well. So we've got Kaz. She's just joined, and that's James's wife. They're a husband and wife family team based in the UK, and they are launching their breeding program, and I think they've got some really interesting things going on their end. So welcome to the show, Kaz and James. Lovely to have you here. Let me just see if I can find your TikTok on here. I've never done this before. I've always assumed that TikTok is on a mobile, but I'll just see whether I can find you guys on TikTok, and just type in Gen Z.
Yeah,
Gen Z Reptiles. Let me see if I can find anything on here. It could be quite funny to get you guys up. Discover Gen Z Reptiles, popular videos on TikTok. Okay, if I can find one, here we go. I'm going to just share the screen now. Just bear with me a second. I've got so many screens I can share. I'm going to get the wrong one probably. Let's see if I can get this one. Does that look right to you?
That's our stuff.
Is that you? Okay, let me see if I can get you a little bit bigger here. So you've got here. Let me see if you got one of you guys dancing. Hello.
Oh, I don't know if we still have any of those up. You
got 14.3 million views. You're kidding me?
that one's not our video, but there's we've got a couple that have quite a few views. So that second video right there with that one got quite a few. That one got 5.5 million views. And so it's just a fun song. We pulled out some of our favorite holdbacks from that year and just kind of showed them on camera, and people went crazy on it.
Yeah, it's fun. We never expected the result of getting millions of views on those videos. It was just kind of a fun way of us to create the content.
Mm-hmm. That is brilliant. I love it. And they're very short and punchy, aren't they? Kids nowadays, they don't want to hang about. They want about 30 seconds, and that'll do them.
If that, yeah.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Maybe I should get my daughter, Emily, to do that, because she's kind of part of the team.
Yeah, that'd be fun to get her involved.
Yeah. Now we've got Jeremy and I think you'll know Jeremy from Warful Morphs. Yep. He was on the show last week and had a lovely birthday. So welcome, Jeremy, to the show. Lovely to have you here. And we had a lovely week last week together. And of course, we're both into Star Wars. And I know that you guys are probably into Star Wars because you're going for the Wookiee project.
Yeah.
Am I right? Are you guys Star Wars fans yourselves?
We enjoy Star. I would say we're probably not as hardcore fans as you and Jeremy are, but we do enjoy Star Wars for sure.
One of our brothers is a huge Star Wars fan, though, so you guys.
Okay, that's cool.
We get along quite well.
I bet he loves the Wookiee project then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm really enjoying this new technology. My son Adam's my IT man here, and he's given me 2 wide computers here. I can share stuff, which is fantastic. So I like to be very spontaneous with the show. So like if you guys come up with a topic or subject or an interest, I might slip onto my other channel here and see what we can find that would be relevant to what you're saying. So we'll keep that on the back burner. But let's now go back to the other slide and let's just go through your journey here. So we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram. Now, how many people have you got on Instagram following you at the moment?
I think we're approaching the 18K.
Yep. We're going through a really fast growth right now. We had a couple of videos on there that are getting quite a few views. So the Instagram has this thing called Reels, and it's very similar to TikTok. And so we're catching a lot of attention with our Reels right now.
Okay, that's really good. Now, Jared runs our Instagram. I've got my own little private Instagram because I think in everything in life, you kind of respect each other's babies. I know that both yourself, Jace, and also Josh, you work together, but you also respect each other's spaces. So like if, for example, when it comes to finances, am I right in saying that Josh is very much the numbers man in the team there?
I'd say he takes the lead. There's a lot of collaboration. We discuss everything through and through, but Josh does a lot of the number crunching and the decision-making around, we do a lot of decision-making based off of the numbers. So I would say Josh is definitely the tip of the spear when it comes to that.
But then I just bring that info to Jace, and then we both chat it out and decide from there, I guess.
See, this is what I love about your partnership is that even though you might have your own strengths and you bring it to the table, you still come together and jointly agree on what you're going to do in terms of projects, in terms of finances. So you make a joint decision together, because there's nothing worse than falling out of money. When family fall out over money or projects or whatever it may be, it's not good news. You want to definitely, and I try always in my family to take my wife with me on journeys when we make joint decisions that she feels as though we can sit down together and work things through and work out where our priorities are. So it's not just I don't think it should be one person's vision alone, particularly when you're in a partnership And I'm guessing you're an equal partnership. Is that
50,
We are,
yeah.
yep, 50-50.
50-50? And it's the same with Jared and I. We're both 50-50 partners. Now, I understand you've got an LLC, isn't it? Is it an LLC they call in the US?
Yeah, yep, that's correct.
So it's a limited liability partnership, isn't it? Over here, we have a limited company ourselves. So we're New Forest Morphs Limited. And I think that as your collection expands and as your business expands, it's probably a very wise thing to do for you guys in the US as well as it is over here for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. Especially, so it was going to be a lot easier to keep our finances separate and really track the business as its own entity versus our personal financial stuff.
Yeah.
Before we got our LLC, I was just doing everything through my own stuff, and I was like spending a bunch of money, and sometimes I'd lose track of what I spent on the business or how I was. Yeah. So long story short, it was just a lot more advantageous for us to go through that, and then it's also easier for us to keep track of it as partners, having it be its own entity.
Yeah, so that's excellent, and I think we feel the same way because it's so easy to confuse your personal finances with the business hobby, and it's good to keep it separate. And luckily, because we're our own accountants, we won't have to charge ourselves any accountancy fees at the end of the year.
That's really nice.
It's a shame. If I was the CPA in the US, I'd be offering my services to you. But if you ever want any advice, I know that Aussie, I think it's like Aussie does a series where he talks about some really practical tax advice. Because I think Miguel has a really good accountant, and I think on his show they talk a lot about finances. If anyone wants to get into it in the US side, there are one or two people out there that can help. But in the UK, I'm here to support anyone in the UK if they want to set up a company or they want to talk tax. You know, I can offer my extra services to people, and I'll probably do it free of charge to start with. And if it develops into something, we can obviously do a competitive quote. But I think we're trying to help each other out here in this industry, and I think it's good to give a little bit of goodwill to each other. Now, I also want to invite Apex Mutations. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. And it looks as though we've got a nice conversation going on there with quite a few of our friends. So thank you, everyone, for joining us in the house. So let's now move on to the next slide. The slide's going to help me.
It looks like Apex had said, ask what made them decide to do an LLC. We kind of covered that a little bit, but the ultimate decision was we wanted to make it its own entity. And that would help us from a financial standpoint, make decisions and keep it separate from our personal finances. And it being a partnership, that also made it a lot less complicated when doing the taxes. Yes.
Also, I suppose when you expand building facilities, I know that you guys have got some massive future plans. I want to discuss that with you later tonight. But you're actually going to be moving your facility into a separate facility soon when the time is right, when the weather improves.
That's correct. Yeah.
I'm super excited. I can't wait to see what you guys have got, because I know that you've got a big enough space that you can breed your own rats, but also a big enough space that you can expand your population, which from you guys must be just can't wait to get in there and can't wait to get going.
Yep. We're super excited about that. It's not anything super crazy big. I mean, down the road, we would hope to get into something like Justin's facility, but it's absolutely an upgrade, and we're super excited to get into that. And we'll be living in that space for a while with our snakes and rodent projects. So
at the moment, are you with Mum and I know that both of you have been students for quite a long time, and then you've been building your business up. But are you currently with Mum and Dad at the moment, and then you're moving across, or do you have?
So we're now. So I bought a house, and Josh is living with me, and the snakes are at the parents' home. So we see our parents every single day.
Okay.
Yep.
So the idea is that the snakes are going to come and join you guys on your new home, and it will be a partnership within. So that's going to be very convenient, because presumably you can then just get your snakes without having to travel, and also Mum and Dad get use of their space, because I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. It takes up a big chunk of space for sure.
Yeah, my wife Mandy was very happy when we built our facility. Was it about a year or so ago? Because we had snakes in every single little crooked cranny in the house. Right. I learned an awful lot about snake anatomy, because I had about 30 snakes in my bedroom, and I know you had one of your videos. I remember you telling us that you had 30 snakes in your dorm that you managed to sneak in, which I thought was really amazing, that you were running a little snake business parallel to doing your degree, which I thought was just so fascinating, so
It was
fantastic.
a lot of fun, yeah. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I had to be super sneaky, but luckily everybody I lived with, they were supporter. They're actually into the reptiles with me. I convinced them that reptiles are cool enough, so they would get into the reptiles with me as well. But yeah, it was a good time. It was a good
Yeah.
time. In
Now-
the comments, kind of going back to the, yeah, Paul, any way you can verify us and make us that.
Any way you can verify us and make our titles blue so we can easily explore each other's channels. That's interesting. So I do like the blue on black. I think your color coordination is really cool. I'm just trying to think. We've gone for a green and black look, so I'm just trying to work out what Phil's saying there. Is there any way you can verify us and make our titles blue so we can easily explore each other's channels? I've never done that before. Have you ever heard of that?
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure.
We're not very well versed with YouTube Live, so I'm not sure.
Phil, we might have to come back to you on that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, it looks like it doesn't know what it's not. And then Apex had a comment about the, yeah, so I met with several CPAs, asked about the financing and how that differs from LLC to sole prop. They said once I stop reinvesting and start making profit of 30K and up, then I could use LLC. Yeah, so that's similar to what we heard starting out, but because it's a partnership, it was more advantageous for us to go the LLC route. If I was doing it completely by myself, I would have followed this advice for sure. Because when it's just one person doing it, it's a little bit easier from a tax standpoint to do it from a sole proprietorship. And then, yeah, there's no reason to do an LLC unless you are hitting above that 30K or there's other elements involved like we have. So, yeah, I would echo what they say. That's pretty solid advice.
Yeah, I think in the UK, we go for limited companies for tax reasons when you hit about 30K as well. So it's a similar number for tax planning. But there is another reason to go limited besides the sales and profitability. And that is where, like you said, if you're in partnership, it keeps it clean away from your personal assets. And also there is a level of protection because things don't always go to plan and you can be exposed and you can be, I'm not sure what it's like in the US because over here, if you are trading as a limited company and things go badly wrong for you, you can fold the limited company, but you only lose the capital that you put in. So therefore, you're only risking the capital you're putting into your hobby business rather than, if something went wrong and there was a problem, you can never tell. I mean, imagine, I'm not saying it would happen, but let's say that we're all building up our stock and suddenly there's a crash in the ball python market and prices tumble. That could put us all under a lot of financial pressure and you could see businesses going out. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it was to happen, you divorce your personal assets from the limited company. Therefore, it's the limited company that goes under, not you. So there's another good reason to protect yourself, particularly if you're a house owner and you've got other assets, that you're only risking the capital you're willing to put into the business. So therefore, even if the tax planning isn't spot on initially, in the UK, it's good. Sometimes it's good to have one standing by ready to go, or maybe start having one from day one because of your business plan may be that within 2 or 3 years you're going to hit that 30 and it will be tax efficient anyway. But it just keeps it clean from the onset, and it's so much easier to. We over here we vote dividends to each other. So if you if you have shares in the company, you're allowed to take out a salary, but you can also take out dividends, and dividends tend to be a lot more tax efficient than salary. So there are lots of good reasons to have a limited company in my book. Yeah. Thank you. So it's a great question, guys, and we will try and pick up as many questions as we can. So we've got Celtic Bulls asking a similar question. So until you start making that profit, you don't need an LLC. So I would say if you want an LLC for tax reasons, then obviously $30,000 is about the right limit. If you want one for personal safety and protection from your personal assets, then I'd recommend having one from day one. But there will be some financial costs involved because an accountant can cost you money. You've got to open up a separate bank account. You've got to, there's a lot more paperwork involved. And there's also disclosure where you have to file accounts over here. I don't know whether you have to file public accounts with an LLC in the US, but I'm guessing you might have to.
So, there are advantages to doing it before you hit that mark. But like you said, there's more costs involved and a lot more paperwork involved. So that disclosure, you're opening separate bank accounts, you're going through all these different operating agreements, and Yeah, so there's more expenses involved that you'll have to fork out up front. But like you said, it keeps it a lot cleaner. And if you were planning on being in the business for the long haul and you're eventually going to get to that level, it's not a bad idea by any means.
It really just depends on what your goals are at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think in every event, always speak to a professional for yourself, because each of our circumstances are going to differ. But it's worth having. I mean, I offer a free 1-hour consultation in the UK, and I'm sure the CPAs over there will probably give you 1 hour free of their time initially to just talk through the options, and then they'll quote for you and give you some idea. So what I would say is, go on a recommendation always. Now, you guys might have an accountant or someone you could recommend to anyone out near your way, but I always say go with the recommendation always, so that you're getting the best advice you possibly can. And I always say that normally most accountants will give you 1 hour free just to kind of answer your questions and let you think about it, and then come back, and if they want to do business, they do business. So normally it's a non-obligation 1 hour free consultation. Now, Jeremy Wolf has just clarified Phil's question about having the blue color coding on the channel, and he's talking about referring to having moderators on the channel. Now, I know that some people do have moderators on their channels because and we're going to come back to this subject about cyber attacks on the internet, because one or two of my friends and myself have experienced cyber attacks on YouTube. Have you guys experienced it yourself? Have you ever had any cyber attacks or any bullies trying to pull you guys down or attack you?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think anyone who puts himself out there is going to deal with it at some point in time. So we definitely have had the mean comments and really aggravated viewers at some point, but it just depends.
And it's when you're putting a lot of time into it, and especially when you're smaller content producer, it feels like it's a more intimate experience. So it's easy to take things to heart. I get more worked up about things than Josh does. Josh has this mentality like, well, I'll probably never see that person, so it doesn't really make a difference. It's not going to stop me doing what I'm doing. For me, I used to take it a lot more personal, but the more I got into it and the more I started listening to people who are larger content creators and kind of just looking at all of the mean comments that happen on all of their pages, it kind of changed my perspective. I'd say Miguel Garcia is a really good example of this. When he first started, he came in and he was throwing a lot of money into the industry, and he was showing his really cool flashy snakes, and people were just giving him a really, really hard time. They're hating on him big time. But he didn't stop. I'm sure that impacted him as well, but he just kept going with it. And now he's one of the most well-known ball python breeders, and a lot of people absolutely love him. Once you actually meet him in person, we don't know him super well, but we've met him before in person. He just seems like a very down-to-earth, really cool guy. So the take that I have on it is I think about those people and think about probably where they're coming from, and also understand if they saw me face to face, they probably wouldn't say it that same way. A lot of times those people are not in the best place mentally or in their personal life, and they feel like they need some way of feeling better about themselves, so they bring others down on the internet. But they have the security of it being on the internet. They don't actually have to do it face to face. So what brings me peace is if I went to actually talk to these people in person, I don't think they ever would say anything mean like that. Another really good example of somebody who's very well known, who has gone through a lot, is Brian Barczyk from BHB. There's some things that people have seen that he's done in his past that was controversial, but all in all, he has done so much good for the industry, and he's got a lot of people's attention and brought them into the industry. So for me, it's like, that you're doing well when you start getting some of the hate comments. That you're catching attention when you start getting that, because not everybody's going to agree with you, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's easy to get frustrated, but at the end of the day, I've started counting it as the more that we get hate, obviously you have to check and make sure you're not doing things that is like seriously wrong. But if you're firm in what you're doing and you feel good about it, then those hate comments just mean that you're getting more people's attention and you're growing as a channel. That's how we do it.
I think your philosophy on that is really good, and I share a lot of your views, because I think, 10 years ago I launched my first YouTube channel, and I was shocked by I had a pack of wolves. I call them a pack of wolves after me. I mean, I was posting some fishing videos. I was catching salmon, sharing it on the forums, thinking I was doing people a favor, showing them my techniques. I'm a very unusual fisherman. I'm very transparent. Most fishermen are secretive. They don't tell their techniques, but I'm also very open, and I'm very open with my YouTube channel on the ball pythons, because we're here to help each other. I've got no secrets to hide. and I just didn't want to help people. And so I'm really transparent. But in that transparency, and when you're a beginner, you are exposed to attacks. And it hit me quite hard, actually, that it wasn't just one person having a go at me. There was about 14 of them, a group of them, off the forum. And they attacked me personally in a way that was it really did get to me at the time. And I was really upset. I was thinking, I'm trying to share the joy of the hobby, and I'm getting attacked for no reason at all, really. And I think what I've learned is that people out there, you're right, there are people out there who don't make the right judgment calls, and they can be overly critical. And I think sometimes, and I'm a very sensitive person myself, so it's very easy to get sensitive when someone says something which you're not expecting. But at the same token, there's also people out there that want to put you down. And these are people that I call it the green-eyed goddess approach. In the fishing area, when people aren't catching salmon and someone else is catching, they see your success as their failure instead of actually celebrating your success. Mm-hmm. And they then try to attack you on your channel and try and bring you down. And I think the same thing happened on my ball python show a year ago. I was getting attacked on 2 or 3 different fronts. And in the end, I thought about it, and I thought, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to take the bull by the horns here, because I'd already experienced attacks 10 years earlier on my other channel. So my son Nathan sent me a present. He gave me a red and yellow card as a referee. So what I was doing, I brought out my red and yellow card. So when someone said a comment that wasn't quite right, and they needed to kind of reevaluate, I'd bring out a yellow card and give them a yellow card. It was like a warning and saying, I'm not happy with that comment, and I'd like you to have a look at it and either take it away or change it, because it's actually not a very kind thing to say. And 1 or 2 people did adjust their comments, and 1 or 2 people took them down. In fact, one of the guys that took them down because I strongly disagreed with his views on humidity, and he was telling us that we should be at levels of humidity way above what all the professional breeders are telling us. And I said to him, you're giving people misleading information. I said, I'm running a humidity level at around about 60 to 65. And if you talk to a lot of other breeders out there, they're running at about that level. And then they top up for breeding and they top up for when they're shedding. But you don't want to be too high on your humidity. And he was telling me, no, it should be 80, even 90%. I'm saying, I don't think so. And I referred him to all the experts out there, the Brian Barcheks and all the other guys out there, the Justins. They've all got care notes on their websites. And they clearly say that you want to be aiming between 55 and 65 percent humidity in your facility. And I sent him a picture. I sent him copies. I referred him to that. I also corrected my channel and said, look, this is what I'm understanding, because I was only 2 years in learning. And he gracefully removed his comment. He went quiet for 3 months, and then I said to him, you're not banned from my channel. You can come back, but just be careful what you say, because it's misleading. And the way you're going about doing it is attacking me personally. And I said, there's a way to do things. If you don't agree, then by all means make a comment, but do it in a nice way. Mm-hmm. And I think he learnt that, and I gave him the chance to come back. But there was 3 or 4 other people that attacked me so badly. It was so rude. It was getting really rude as well, that I had to report them to the YouTube people. And I think they removed their account. So if anyone gets seriously attacked and you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling sensitive to it, and the person isn't willing to change, you can report them. And I did. I reported about 3 people last year. Now, since then, I've had very little problems, because YouTube have got the power to close people down. And in the UK, we've got police authorities in the UK that can actually, very serious cyber crimes that are being committed, where people are being seriously attacked, the police can actually get behind the avatars and go to the homes and locate where they're sending that message. Now, a lot of these people out there don't realise that when people are being attacked, if it's really serious, you can report them to a crime squad in the UK. I think it's a London police service that we have. And they have people that can home in on these cyber bullies and these people that are very threatening, and they can actually send a police officer to their homes. They can take possession of all their computer equipment, find out exactly what they've been doing, and they can be locked up for 5 years and have a criminal record. So last year I did a video on cyberbullying on my channel, and anyone out there that's suffering with cyberbullying, either as a as a provider of a service or as a viewer or receiver of a service, it's worth having a look at that, because you'll see there's 3 or 4 options available to you. Don't take it. I wouldn't take it now. I'm very firm. I'm fair but firm with people, and I give them a chance to kind of retract and adjust and then come back into the community. Or I give them a 3 months sin bin. They got to just, I don't want you on the channel for 3 months. Go and think about what you're doing. Let them have some time to reflect, and then come back perhaps with a different attitude, and then I welcome them back again. So I don't write people off. I just help people to adjust. And I think if you take that approach, if we go into this YouTube business with the view that there are cyberbullies out there, but we're not going to let them pull us down. Instead, we're going to show how strong we are. We're going to be firm with them and say, look, if you continue like this, then these are my options, and I will take those options if I feel I need to. And it's amazing how these cyberbullies go very quiet. And it's been quiet for nearly a year on my channel. I'm really grateful that I took that strong stance, because sometimes you just got to be strong without losing your temper or losing your cool. I see people have rants all the time, and I think that's the last thing you really should do, because it shows the bullies that you're allowing them to get to you. But if you're very professional and firm and say, look, I don't agree with what you're saying, and this is my views on it, and this is my options. Now, I'd like you to stay on the channel if you can actually contribute positively, but if you get negative with me, then my community is going to feel that negative vibe. I'm feeling the negative vibe. Come positive, please. And if you want to say something constructive, say it constructively, because this is an open discussion. I don't mask any of my comments,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it's like I find it super important to have the ability to challenge ideas and different ways of doing things. This industry is an interesting one because you have a lot of people that read things one time and then they stick with it really hardcore. They read it on one care sheet and they're like, oh, it needs to be this all the time. And anybody who's not doing like that, we're going to call them out for it. But really, there's a lot of stuff that keepers are still learning, and you're constantly learning. So personally, I think it's really good to have that space to have disagreements and have constructive opposing ideas. There's ways to conduct those conversations. So I think you have to be really careful about still making sure you provide that space to have those conversations. But if they're being completely negative and just going for personal attacks, why are they even there? There's no point. If we've been super fortunate where we've not gotten to that point where somebody's just constantly trying to, but it's like, it almost seems like those people just want your attention. If you dig in kind of to the people who are leaving comments like that, either, like you said, they're jealous, they want what you have, or they just unfortunately have a really boring life, and their most entertaining thing to do is bring others down on the internet. So you have to feel bad for them at some point. But it's like, there's no, you have to think about the way that you spend your energy. Do you really want to spend it all on somebody who's negative and bringing it down, or do you just want to ignore it? And it's hard, I know, when you have like 14 people jumping out because one person has the confidence to say something negative and then everybody else feels like, oh, there's no consequence, so they jump in. I get it's hard. But at some point in time, either you have to just brush it off, not take it personally, or there are steps that you can take, such as blocking them or either permanently or temporarily, just to see if it can help make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's good counsel for that. And it's interesting because on our amongst our group here, we've got 3 or 4 people that are thinking about setting up a YouTube channel, but they're being held back because they realise that you are open for abuse. And one of our new channels and one of our new friends recently, Celtic Bulls, said that this week, now I'll just share their comment with us. Hang on a minute, that's not that one. I'm a little bit behind. Let me just see where we are. Here we go. So this is the one that, here we go. So thank you for asking that question. We had 3 different incidents this week and I was furious. I almost gave up YouTube. So I really feel for Jeff and Angie there, because they're the nicest people you could possibly meet, and they've got a beautiful collection. And 3 comments attacking them this week almost put them off going on with their YouTube. Now, they put out a lovely video like this week, despite those 3 different incidences. And in fact, this is the best thing we can do. When my son Nathan he's a good football player, soccer player. And I used to coach football when they were young kids. And there's me as a dad referee looking on and seeing that some of the team's not playing fair. And I'm seeing my son's getting hacked and chopped. And you wouldn't think it's a game of soccer. You think it's a game of rugby, the way they play it. But my sons have got a really good positive outlook, and what they do is they let their football do the talking.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I said to Nathan, I said, "Cool, you're so much bigger than these guys. You could have flattened them with one hand easily." I mean, my two boys are big, strong lads. And when Nathan does play rugby, it takes 5 players. When I went to go and see him at school, he'd be running with the rugby ball, and there'd be 5 players dragging behind him, and he's still going towards the touchline. He's that kind of strong. So these boys who hack him don't realise how loving Nathan is. He has no malice in him at all, and he's a very cool character. And so he ends up dribbling around 3 of these players and putting the ball in the back of the net, and we win the game. And I said to Nathan, I said, "You did really well to hold your temper there." He goes, "Dad, the best thing I can do is let my football do the talking and just score the goal." And I thought, that's such a mature approach to take as a young boy. And I think the same principle is here that you're teaching us here, and that Celtic Balls is teaching us, is that they actually put out a great video about their collection with a backdrop of 3 people attacking their channel. To me, that's like scoring a goal and not rising to the challenge, because, you know, I don't know if you've seen the size of Jeff. He's built like an ox. I mean, he could probably flatten these guys with one finger if he really wanted to. You know, you wouldn't want to mess with a guy. I mean, he's a power lifter. He's a strong guy. And I'm thinking, these idiots that are attacking him are really trying to provoke him. And he's done really well to keep the cool. And Angie. I mean, they both weight train. And what I'm saying is, I think when that happens, you just got to, like you said, it was almost like water off a duck's back. It does upset you initially, but I think you can do things to help you get through it. And I think your advice to say, there's a time to fight your battles, there's a time to just let it go.
Absolutely.
And just keep, yeah.
And there's other considerations too. You got to ask yourself, why am I doing YouTube? Why am I putting my content out there? For some people, it's just, maybe it isn't worth it to keep posting. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I think that it's really good to do some serious self-reflection and ask yourself, why am I posting these YouTube videos? For Josh and I, it's like, we really like to connect with people. We like to show that we are real people. So if people want to buy snakes from us, they can look at our YouTube videos and realize that we're legitimate. But it's also a really good way for us to keep track. We document our process along the way. So sometimes we'll go back and watch our old videos and just see, wow, 2 years ago, this is where we were, and we've come a long way. So for us, that makes it so worth it. There's several things that we do. But if you're only doing it because other people are saying you should do it, it's a lot of hard work. And so maybe that's not enough to keep going. But if there are variables within that are enough to drive you to keep doing it, then you have to weigh, is it worth continuing posting despite these negative comments, or do I want to back off? For a lot of us, though, the documentation of the process itself is enough to keep going. That's a big enough drive. So at that point in time, yeah, unfortunately, there's going to be some negative comments. I mean, there's a delete button if you need to do that. If you just don't want to see them anymore, just delete it. That's fine. You know, it's like, it's your channel. They're coming onto your channel to try to bring negativity. You don't need that negativity. So it's fine. That's an okay thing to do as well. And just keep it going and keep your content going so you can go back and look on it, or whatever your reason may be. Just be solid in your reasoning, and that can also help you get beyond those negative comments. And then if your goal is to become a big YouTuber and you want a bunch of following and all of that, well, then you have to know 100% that you're going to get some of that hate and bullying online. But if you listen to the people that are there, that are big, listen to podcasts, listen to Brian Barczyk talk on podcasts. Like he got really messed up by it because there's so much negativity, but he eventually got to that point where he's like, you know what, I'm doing this for me and for the people who enjoy it. What you start to realize is there's a lot of people who really enjoy it that don't say anything. They're this quiet majority, I would say, that just don't say anything. They don't feel the need to post, but they're still there enjoying it. And so it's like, you have to keep that in the back of your mind as well. Even though you're maybe not seeing all these positive comments coming out, there's so many people out there that are watching, that are enjoying it. And so like, that's another thing that could help you just keep going. At some point in time, you're going to hit a crowd that really enjoys your stuff. They're not going to necessarily say anything, but they're still enjoying.
I think that's a really good point, because 99.9% of your viewers are going to enjoy your content. And that's a very small percentage that are going to try and dissuade us from putting out the content. And I think if you put that into perspective and say, you know what, we're ticking a lot of boxes, we're pleasing a lot of people, and also we're building up friendships. I mean, I must admit, since I've been doing this YouTube channel, I've built up so many lovely friendships, and you guys have as well. Absolutely. Is that the friendships are worth their weight in gold, because even if you get one bad apple in a whole bunch, and that bad apple can go if it wants to, if it doesn't want to change, he can go. You've then retained 99 really good friends, and I think this is true of life, isn't it? And I think the YouTube channel is there to kind of build a community, but unfortunately, it will attract one or two unsavory characters, and I think that's part of the cost of doing it. But I think if I focus on the positive, like you say, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you going, it keeps you pumped, doesn't it? And the snakes keep me pumped, to be honest with you, because I want to share the journey of my snakes. And a lot of people get attached to my snakes as I get attached to your channel. And I think people, Jared and I haven't put much content out. And I'm sure a lot of my viewers are thinking, come on, Paul, you need to be putting out more content. But we just had our busy tax return period, and I'm having a semi-vacation. And this live shows as much as I can do at the moment. But we will get back into it. And I'm just psychologically recovering from so much pressure we've had for 3 months that I just need a break, to be honest with you. And people know that. They know that I love our snakes. And also, things are really kicking off. And I want to find out what's going on in your facility, because you've got lots of really exciting things going on. So thank you for those questions, and thank you for providing your answers to some of the problems that we do face. Let me just go back to the slideshow. So let's just move on to the next one. Now, there you go. I'm trying to find out which state you are in. You're actually quite central in the US, but I can see your state. So it's just in the center there, isn't it? I'm not sure how clear that's coming through. Yeah. So you're from... Now, over here, we watch your politics, and your state is the most sensitive... you guys just determine who the president of the United States is, basically. You're one of the key states, aren't you?
We're one of the key states. Yeah, there's it's a swing state, so it could go one way or another depending on the year, depending on the candidate. So that's from a political standpoint, Iowa is definitely interesting.
Yeah, the caucusing can definitely influence that quite a bit.
So how many generations? I know you guys. Your family name is Haddish.
Haddish. Yep.
Now, so are you originally? I was just trying to do some studies on that. But where's your family originally from, and when did you guys come into the US? And what's the story on your family coming to the US?
Yep. So it's a pretty interesting story. So we are from two very different lineages, I would say. My dad's side is Czech and Irish descendants. So it's been a few generations that his side of the family has been in the United States. I believe it's our great grandma, and I don't remember exactly. His side of the family has been in the States for a few generations, and then mom's side of the family is a little bit newer to the States. So she was actually born here, but a lot of her older siblings and her parents are from Pakistan. So we've got some mixed blood going on here, and some interesting family history, I will say. It's cool to dig back in and see all of the different stories and hear about all of the different relationships and all of that has happened. But yeah, that we're in eastern Iowa, and there's actually decent Middle Eastern population and Czech population as well in the city that we were born and raised in.
Yeah, I noticed there's a museum there on the map I'm going to show you where you've got a Czech and let me just have a little look and see where we are. I'm just going to go through a few slides here. Sure. So on that map, it's showing you there's a museum in the dead center of your state.
Yeah, the Czech and Slovak Museum.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, it's interesting that your family are also from Czech Republic, but also from Ireland, because obviously, I must welcome Kirsty to the show. Okay, she's enjoying the show. Thank you, Kirsty, for coming. Yeah. Let me just welcome her to the show. So, now you're living in a place called Cedar Rapids that looks gorgeous. I bet you there's some good fishing where you guys are.
Up north's a little bit better. But...
Yeah,
Okay.
The pictures that they put online make it look exceptionally gorgeous. There are definitely some spots in the city that look good. I would say, all in all, fishing is it's hit or miss, because Josh and I used to go fishing. Josh was especially big into fishing, and then my sister's boyfriend, he's huge into fishing. He loves it, so he knows all the good spots around town. But a lot of times, if you want to get some really fun fishing times, you have to travel a ways.
Yeah, we go up north to Minnesota. That's the place to go.
Yeah, Minnesota is the place to go.
I just watched a video the other day with Dave Huffman up there. He did some ice fishing. There's a restaurant out there. I don't know if you saw his show, but it made me laugh because in the US, you guys are so innovative. I mean, you actually produce a pub on the ice where you can fish for walleye and northern pike while you're eating a pizza and drinking beer. I'm thinking the only place I know is the US that would come up with that idea. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, if Josh likes his fishing and I come and visit you guys, we'd love to get the rods out and start heading north to Minnesota, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. I'm just showing you a few pictures of your city and town. It looks beautiful. I mean, covered in water.
Yeah, so that's like the downtown area, and that's the Cedar River. Definitely one of the more beautiful spots in town.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
They're working on developing the downtown area. It was big way long ago, and then it kind of it hit this kind of, I don't know how you describe it. There's not much going on for a while, and then we had a really bad flood, and then there's rebuilding efforts. But I would say we're kind of reaching this phase where they're doing a really good job of bringing in new fun things for people to do, new businesses, new markets. We have like a farmer's market in the summer that happens downtown, so definitely on the rebuild phase.
Now, I've noticed there's a lot of farming in your state as well, and I know that your degree, I think you were telling me when you did your degree, you were doing a degree in ecology, is it animal ecology, and was it related to farming as well? I can't remember what you did.
I actually did. I have 2 degrees. One of them is in animal ecology, and then the other one is global resource systems. So, global resource systems was that was in the College of Agriculture. Both of them are in the College of Agriculture, but with that major, I did a lot more hands-on with sustainable small-scale agriculture.
See, what I like about that is that with your degree and you're studying animal ecology, then you've got a science-based degree, which is going to help no end. It's going to help with the husbandry and the breeding side. And tonight we want to talk about your success in breeding, because I've been studying your sizes of your clutches and the number of slugs that you're not getting. And I'm thinking you guys are ticking some really important boxes somewhere. You're doing something right, because you're getting massive clutches, you're getting a very high percentage of your gills going, and you're getting very few slugs. So later tonight, I want to try and unlock some of the things you guys are doing to help us that are new on the scene, where we're probably struggling with probably too many slugs, the gills not going, and I'm sure it's taken you a while to fine-tune your systems, but I'd like to be able to unlock that if we may, because we're all kind of keen to do some breeding in the next few months, and I think maybe we can gain something tonight that will help us, give us that extra little bit of edge to help us with our projects, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. But I think some of it is luck, but we'd be happy to go down the rundown of what we do, for sure.
I think it would be really helpful. And so this is another mountain in your area. I thought I'd just show a little bit of the scenery of where you guys are from. And then you'll recognize that, because that's the National Museum of Czech and is it Slovakia? So you've got, it's interesting. There must be, are there quite a few families from Czech Republic then based in the area?
Yeah,
because to have a natural museum like that, that's just amazing, really. It must be quite a centered population of Czech people living in this area.
That definitely is, and that this museum is actually right on the edge of this place that's called Czech Village. So there's an entire little street that's dedicated to kind of the Czech heritage, and there's some pubs and bars and stuff down there. And our dad actually used to play in a Czech Plus polka band down there. They play pretty regularly. They had a bandstand down there. So yeah, nice. lots of fun Czech type things going on.
Okay, lovely. And that's an example of I think it's a big guest house in your area that I thought I'd just show the architecture that you guys enjoy out there.
Yep. Would that be Bruce Moore?
Yeah, that's Bruce Moore Mansion.
Yeah. It's a big mansion set in 23 acres.
Yeah.
Now here's your family name. Let's just talk about your family name. Now, it's got Hebrew interpretation. It's got a Hebrew name, and it means heaven. Now, it might have a different name. I mean, if you're from, is that the side of the family that actually are based from India, Pakistan, that area?
No, that's not. That's actually comes from the Czech side, and so there's an interesting history, and I don't fully understand all of the iterations of the name, how they change. But my understanding is that the name originally started as Hades, like Hades, but the pronunciation was more like Haddish. And I think the meaning is probably the opposite of heaven. if you look
God
at
of
it
the
like,
underworld. Hades is the god of the underworld. I'm thinking that here
think,
it's the Jewish name is heaven. It says it's the Jewish name
that's a really nice.
from Hebrew. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what happened is the spelling switched up during the immigration at some point in time. I'm assuming when new papers had to be filed, they asked what the name was and they spelled it phonetically, and so that's how we landed on Haddish. So yeah, it's funny though because there's like a Haddish palace. I can't remember which country, but I believe it's a Middle Eastern country. So it connects to that side as well, which was just by dumb luck. There's no actual.
Okay. Well, my research then is you just blown it out of the water because the next
I
couple of
apologize.
slides. No, it's okay. It's okay because I like to see exactly what's going on because. This is just, I mean, don't necessarily believe all this, but that there's some very complementary things. Each letter in your family ancestry means something. There's one in there that made me laugh that you guys can make a stack of money, but you could lose it very quickly. It says that. I don't think that's necessary. I think maybe the first part might be true, but not the second. But I just thought it was quite funny.
I would love digging into stuff like that. Yeah.
Now this is the map and geography of the Haddish family link, and you can see. Here, Bangladesh is the most populated area where that surname originates from. Bangladesh.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Then Pakistan, and then India, and then you've actually got Kenya, but you can see that it's growing in the US and Canada, and it's growing in Europe. So you can see Australia. So it's a name that's commonly used over the whole planet. So I was thinking, but I would have thought it would have stemmed from Bangladesh because that's where the most centered. Heavy population of people with that surname come from.
Really
So it's very interesting. Yeah. So let's talk about 30 Snakes in the Dorm. I do apologize for the quality of your picture. I've taken your thumbnails and blown it up. So, but I thought it's there to remind me really of what we're going to talk about. So let me just remove that for a second. Let's just talk about you having 30 snakes in your dorm. And just tell us a bit about that story because you were studying at the time, and you couldn't have started with 30. You must have gently slipped them in.
Oh yeah, no, I was So basically, what had happened, I was off at college alone. I didn't have a mom or dad telling me no more snakes, so I was a free man, and I was doing what I wanted with my money. And so I started out with just taking a couple that I already had up there, and I kind of hid them in a small enclosure, and I was like, oh, I need to get more, and so. I would go to different reptile shows, and we actually had a really good breeder friend back in Cedar Rapids that was producing a lot and giving me some pretty good deals. He really wanted me to get into the ball pythons more, and so he was a big help. But so it started out just by getting one here, one there, and it kind of got out of control fast. I wouldn't say out of control, but we had to sneak in a homemade cabinet. It looked like a cabinet. It was a reptile rack, but it had doors on it, and there's good ventilation in the back. We had the heat in the back and everything like that. But my roommate and I were both getting snakes at that point in time, so we made this rack, and luckily a lot of our stuff was young. They were just hatchlings, so we didn't have to take up a whole bunch of space. They were staying in the tubs. I think it was like 6-quart tubs at the time. So that's how we snuck a majority of them in there. And it was. We also had a couple of lizards in there, and my roommate was terrified of spiders, but he wanted to face his fear, so we had like a couple of baby tarantulas in there at one point in time.
My goodness me!
Yeah.
And did you actually get them up to breedable size, or did you kind of just grow them on, knowing that when you get back to your parents or wherever, you're going to have breeder females ready to go, or was it kind of like full production while you're there, or?
So. During that I only lived in the dorm my freshman year, so my first year in college, and then I moved to an apartment after that and had to sneak them into that apartment as well, and I had a lot more in that apartment. But the goal was just to get as many different color morphs as possible. I just love seeing the variety, and so I kept just when I would see a new morph that I didn't have, I wanted it, and so I'd buy it, I'd pick it up. And so that's kind of what the goal of what that was, but I knew eventually I'd be getting into breeding, so it was a few years down the line when I actually decided to go to try breeding out for the first time with a bigger sample size than just like a couple females. So yeah, all of those were they grew up for like 3 to 4 years before they actually got into the pairing rotation, which was interesting. And I think that actually has part to do with our breeding success. We're experimenting with younger snakes, but there has definitely been challenges that have come up with the younger snakes. And I think having these females, they were slow grown. They were not paired until they were 3 to 4 years old. Obviously, they can produce beautiful clutches before then, but I think that was part of the luck that went into getting, not luck, that was part of what went into getting bigger clutch sizes.
Yeah, probably like 75% of our collection is big 2,000 gram plus mature females, so that definitely has an influence on it.
Yeah, a chunk of them were the ones that I bought when I was in college.
That makes complete sense, because Jared has done exactly the same as you, where he bought 4 years ago this beautiful cinnamon girl, and she's like 3 kilograms. She gave us 10 eggs last year. The year before that, she didn't go at all, and she was nearly 4 years old. And then this year, we're hoping to create some beautiful animals from her. She's got 30 mil follicles right now. And wow. She's not far from laying, and she gives us big clutches. So I think one of the keys to success, this is what I'm learning as a quite new breeder, and I'm glad you've just said that, because I think you've just unlocked the key to long-term success, is that unfortunately many of us, when we first come into the hobby, we were keen to breed as soon as we can, and we accelerate the development of our animals possibly a bit too quickly, and we might breed at 1,500 grams thinking they're just about fine. And I did that with 2 of my girls last year, and they gave me slugs, and now they've got to rebuild, and they lost quite a lot of weight, and I don't think they're going to go for me this year. And I made the mistake of being a little bit premature. I mean, technically on paper they should have been fine, but they didn't go for me, and it's sad, because now I'm actually 2 years behind now. If I'd have waited 1 more year, like Jared waited another year, he didn't wait, it just happened that way. But we're learning from the experience that the older the girls, the bigger the girls, the more successful it seems to me, that the clutches are sound, they're large. So I think missing a year, you can double up on your production the following year. So let's say if you miss a year, you could double the size of your clutch and end up with less slugs and end up with a much more fruitful harvest of your collection.
Yeah, potentially. But to add to that, like we're not pairing every single female that's 1,300 to 1,400 grams. But last season we did pair a female who was 1,400 grams, but she is one of our best feeders. So we anticipated that she was going to keep building weight, and by the end of the period where she ended up laying eggs, she was up to 2,200 grams within a series of months.
So yeah, it's something that we're still trying to figure out what's the best method. And I would say the most consistent results that we've seen is our females that are about that 3 to 4 years that have a good size on them. They're going to be producing a lot of clutches that have high fertility rates and a larger size clutch. There's no doubt about that. We've also, we did have one clutch where it was like low fertility, but we think maybe that had to do with a young male in the rotation as well. So sometimes our young males just knock it out of the park. We have very, very good success rate. Our Wookiee last year, he was a young male, but he got it done with a lot of girls. And so we produced a lot of really awesome Wookiee combinations.
Yeah, that's fantastic investment, fantastic return. And I saw the size of him. He was only a little boy. He packs a punch, that boy, I tell you.
Yeah. But then we had a couple of other young breeders that were even slightly bigger than him, but born the same year, and they didn't carry that strong. So there was a couple of slugs from some of their clutches. So we're still trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and we're trying to experiment and figure out if there's any trends that we're going to be seeing, or if it's all by luck. I think that like I said, the big females, they do consistently produce big clutches. We've seen that, we've confirmed that. But some of the younger females, I think if you hit it at the right time, you have potential to do quite well, but you have to be looking out for some cues. So we're really trying to learn those cues still. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that we are looking into investing in is an ultrasound. And so do you want to talk about that at all, or just kind of like Austin was saying about
Yeah, I guess like for some people, ultrasounds work super well. It's super calculated, but for others, it ends up throwing off their season. I don't know what kind of effect it has on their females or their pairing times, but honestly, for us, we are at a pretty decent rate of fertile clutches and got a lot of females going. And we have like some friends who use ultrasounds who are shooting for the same percentages as us. So it's like, I think it'd be interesting to dabble with an ultrasound. And I know you have experience with it, so I kind of want to hear like your opinion on it.
Yeah, but one more thing to add is like,
Yeah.
if we get an ultrasound, we're basically going to try to observe what's going on, keep our practices the same, and observe what's going on inside. And once we figure that out, maybe we could dial it in. And some people have it dialed in super well, and I don't know why. It varies from collection to collection. I think part of it could have to do with where you're located geographically. If you're high up in the mountains, or if you're on the flat plain, if you're in a dry area, a humid area, those all can have an impact on the inside of your facility. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of figure it out as we go. But
Yeah. So my feeling for the first 3 months of using an ultrasound, it's a very useful tool. It kind of helps us dial in on the size of the follicles, because what we're finding is a lot of our girls weren't up to 10 mil. And if I had not the ultrasound, I would have been pairing with them early, and I may have wasted my males too soon. So I think what it does, it allows you to kind of be patient more. It allows you to say, these girls aren't quite ready yet, give them another month and let's start pairing. And I think the top breeders are teaching me, like Justin Kabelka and others that use an ultrasound, is that Billy at Mutation Creation, is they use it as a tool to help them, because they might have some really beautiful boys, and those boys have to be spread quite thinly amongst 5 or 6 girls. And therefore, if you end up pairing them every month, you're going to tire out your boys, and you could end up, with a situation where the boys aren't ready for the following season because they're just absolutely exhausted from breeding, and you've got to be so careful with that. But the ultrasound, what it allows you to do, it allows you to pinpoint the point of entry where, when do I introduce the boy? Is the girl at least 10 mil? And then, and I like your technique where you actually kick them off with another boy while you're growing on a stud male. So that all the work of building the follicles is done by another boy, where he's kind of mating with one of your girls, and then towards the end of the season, you might slip in another higher end boy because he's now up to size, and you end up either with a sire clutch, or you're hoping that the higher end boy gets to steal the clutch. Now, I love your techniques. I learned that from your channel. I'm thinking, wow, I never thought of that before. But if you're producing clutches of 10 or 12 and you end up with a sire clutch, and you've got 2 boys going to that girl, and she ends up having 2 sets of sperm going into the eggs, you'll effectively have 2 lots of 6 egg clutches from one girl.
Yeah.
Potentially. I know it's probably 1 in about 20 that do this, but it's kind of an interesting technique. Build your girls up to the point where they give you big clutches, and then at the end, slip in a male and see what happens, and see whether you get a sire clutch, because then a female could give you 2 clutches for the price of 1.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the dual sire clutch is something that you can't really predict how to make it happen, but it does happen from time to time. And like you said, it's like you're getting 2 clutches in one. You're seeing a lot more combinations. You have to be cautious about that, because you have to make sure your projects are compatible. So for example, if you're trying to work with recessives and you put a desert ghost male to this female, the other male you want to make sure has that desert ghost, for example, or you just want to make sure your projects are compatible, so you can still keep track of the genetics and know exactly what you're working with and what you're putting out there, especially if you're selling. But yeah, it's a really cool thing that we've just experimented with, because we've noticed that even if the females, well, I would suspect that not all of our females are up to that 10 mil follicle size when we start pairing, but my guess is that there is a certain level of development that is triggered just by introducing the males.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you can wait,
Yeah.
but I also believe that there's some biological trigger that happens just by being in the presence, and then from there, more and more stuff starts happening. I don't think anybody has it completely fully figured out all of the variables yet. Ever,
I think the other thing that's useful is with the ultrasound. We've got this big girl that's going to go for us soon. We didn't realise how big she was until we got the ultrasound on her. I mean, she was showing really big follicle growth. Now, Jared said to me, because she's already locked twice with our ultra male Mojave boy that we bred. It's one of our first hatchlings that's now breedable size, and he locked her straight away. First time boy, I couldn't believe it. He just locked straight away. And sometimes those first time boys take a while to get going. This guy, it's like his dad. He's like an absolute stud. And locked to her, and I said to Jazz, that's fantastic. We're going to get like savannas that are going to be 100% het for Ultramel, which is a lovely project to have. So Jad said to me, Dad, there's no need to put him again because she's going to go any moment now. And I said, well, no, I think let's be cautious here because she was only 30 mil. Normally it's 40 to 45 on a big girl before they ovulate. So I said, I think we should, they've only had a couple of locks, let's put him in again. Well, this week he locked again, which is perfect because that's the fresh sperm going in at the point where she's going to start to get close to ovulation. So that just kind of reinforces that, you know, and it's the safety net that we're looking for because you can't guarantee every lock working. But I was told that the freshest and latest lock is normally the best lock by a top breeder that's been doing this for 20 years. And I thought that makes sense to me, providing the boy's firing on all cylinders. The freshest lock normally gets the job done at the end, although she can choose her sperm, you know, she can release whatever sperm she's got. But so it's important. I think the most important lock is the very last lock before ovulation, because the sperm's going to be stronger and it's going to be fresher and it's going to hopefully race to those eggs and get there, you know.
Yeah, it's super interesting though, because I believe they can retain sperm for
about a year,
or maybe even longer potentially. So it's interesting because like even though they can retain it, sometimes it does seem that the more fresh the lock is, the more the fertilization rate's higher, and that's usually the job done.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting rid of a robot that came on there. It's my second robot I've ever had on a live show, but I recognise them now and I just basically block them out, get them out of the way. Thank you for that. Right, let's have a little look and see the next slide that which is going to help us on that. So we talked about your 30 snakes coming in. The next step is to work out how Josh got into the business, because you were keeping them before Josh was on the scene.
Yep, that's correct.
And we're going to talk about your big changes as well. But let me just give Josh some time here, and maybe Josh, you can tell us what interested you in what your brother was doing, and how did you guys get together and formulate the business plan together? I'm interested to know your side of the story.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was like 12-ish, I was kind of interested in it. Jace was really big into it, and I had like maybe one snake or something like that. I would like to hold them and whatnot. But when Jace went off to college, he took all of them, and I kind of got out of it for a little while. And then skip forward to Jace coming back from college. He had a couple clutches, and he hit this wild paradox snake, and he's like, oh my gosh, dude, this thing could be worth like $1,000. And my mind lit up. I'm like, a snake worth $1,000? Oh my gosh. So after he came back, I got to get more hands-on experience and understand the concept of breeding the snakes and selling the snakes for a potential profit. And so I was still in high school. I was working a fast food minimum wage job, but I had been saving up. And so I thought, what better of an investment than a snake that can produce an ROI of up to like 5x in one season? I might as well give it a go. And it turns out it performed quite well. And it's something that we're super passionate about for sure.
I think it does help, because I got in a similar way, because Jared was keeping snakes for a couple of years, and he showed me his first clutch, and they were all normal looking, but they were potentially double hets. And I said to Jared, wow, this is the first time you've done this. You've got 4 eggs. So you got 4 eggs, so you got 4 out of 4 with no problems. I thought, Jared really knows what he's doing here. And I was scared of snakes. He brought me his snakes to me, and he helped me break down all my prejudices and all my preconceived ideas that snakes were going to bite me and didn't want to handle them. And when I worked out that ball pythons are like puppy dogs and they're so soft and gentle, my whole scared approach suddenly was, what am I scared about? These are lovely animals. I mean, they want to hug me, they want to play with me. There was a social side. So I got into it from that perspective. And then it suddenly dawned on me that Jared can now produce a clutch. It's not as hard as I thought it might be. Why don't we have a go at producing a clutch with my daughter? So I went out and bought a het Ultramel girl for £100, and I bought for £400 an Ultramel Mojave, put them together in my first year, and we got 10 eggs, of which 9 were good, and we got 7 Ultramels out of the 9. The odds were fantastic, and we got a $3,000 or $4,000 clutch in my first year. And I thought, your numbers start turning over, and you're thinking, they can pay for themselves and more. I'm thinking, this is a great return. I mean, I was very lucky. I think it's really nice when you have your first clutch and you hit something beautiful where you get visuals. We proved her out. Colossus is her name. She's 4 kilograms. She's built like a tank. But it's coming back to the big girl side. This guy hadn't bred her for 4 or 5 years, and he goes, I think she's 100% het for ultramale. And could I get hold of a visual ultramale from anywhere? Everyone was holding on to the ultramale girls. I thought I'd take a gamble on this het. It may not be a het, but I'll take a gamble. I'll produce some hets if I don't, because I've got a lovely boy. And that's what got me in, similar to you, Josh, is that I was falling in love with the animals, but also I saw that this hobby could pay for itself and maybe even become a business one day. And I was really trying to back Jared with his passion as a father. And I didn't realise how deep my pockets were going to come in. And I must have spent we spent several, a lot of money on snakes. Yeah. And I loved it because I was taking my daughter out, we were visiting places, bringing them back, and then we were pairing them up. And I think in our first season we had 10 pairs that bred, and then last year we had 16. And hopefully each year we'll get stronger and stronger. But we've now breeding with our first babies this year. Mm-hmm. So all the babies that we brought 2 years ago now. I think it's lovely when you get a mature clutch that's ready to breed, because then you're starting to see your babies producing forwards. And I think it's just a lovely feeling to know that you've got homegrown stock that's breeding for you now. And
it's a compounding effect too, because you have one clutch and you keep back 3 females in that clutch. In 2 years, you have 3 more females that you didn't have to purchase. You know everything that went into them, and I mean, you could really expand your collection with not a lot of time. Just by holding back all your females.
Yeah, and I did a business plan to try and work out what our maximum projected income will be based on the pairings we were doing, and then I would actually go into so much detail that I'd go onto the morph market and I'd identify the costs of each gene. I would then work out the probabilities of producing on an average clutch of, very prudent, said 5 average, say. I projected forward based on that, and I was actually projecting the value of the clutches to see what pairings would do and what money would come into the facility so that we could buy more equipment, we could buy more genes and expand. And I was surprised how quickly you can build up a financial model that will generate income to take your business to the next level. I mean, it's very exciting, really, because...
Yeah, that's funny. I did the exact same thing.
You did the exact same thing. And actually last year, how close were you on the...
I think I was within like $1,000.
Within $1,000, yeah.
That's fantastic.
You underestimated by conservative with So
you make a good accountant, Josh. You definitely make a good accountant. But let me ask you this question: How long did it take you to actually make a profit?
Technically, we're still not in the green because we really just reinvest everything into more snakes, better equipment, into the social media side. So, I mean, if we wanted to profit in our first season, we easily could have, but we didn't take that route. We chose to reinvest, and we'll reap the benefits in a couple of years from now.
And it's a unique case because we started by using stock that had raised for years, so we didn't calculate that really into the costs of our initial startup. If we were to buy everything, it would have probably taken us a couple years. But since we just kind of shifted the hobby collection into our breeder stock, we were able to see faster returns because our only expenses at that point was just feeders. And prior to that, I had been producing small scale under the table type things where I'd sell them on Craigslist or at a reptile show or whatever. And I would produce enough basically to pay myself back for food. And then I would always spend a little bit extra money to buy new animals that year. But basically I was breaking even for a while there. And once we decided to turn it into a business, we easily could have profited that first year, but we really enjoy this. We have other streams of income as well. So we decided for us, since we do have our other income streams to fall back on, we're going to build this one up significantly. And then eventually at some point, if this is producing enough, we can kind of wean out of working those other jobs and do what we love every single day, every hour of the day. So that's
I love that. I think your vision for the future is really exciting because there can be I've been self-employed for 30 years working as an accountant, and now my children are helping me in the business, and the family business is flexible. It allowed me to go and see them play football, netball, whatever, but also run the business. And I know when I need to burn the candle. But with snakes, the lovely thing about snakes is that as long as you do your daily cleaning and they're fed once a week or once every 2 weeks, you do buy a lot of time to do other things. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be like 24/7. I think it's a lovely hobby business that will produce you beautiful clutches in the future, but it will give you a lifestyle that could really be suitable to your family's needs, going forward.
So by 24/7, what I mean is Josh and I spend a lot of time scheming what kind of content we want to produce. We also talk a lot about what projects we want to go through, talk through the project. So the actual husbandry part, like you said, it buys you so much time because you're not having to spend that much time to keep the snakes well maintained. But all the extra fun, exciting things to do, watching videos, jumping on lives like this, that can definitely fill up your time. And we love it. We love doing this stuff. So
I think when you have a passion, it's a very natural process that you want to be talking about your hobby and interest and enjoying the community, getting to know people. And I think it's lovely because it's a very natural process, isn't it? And it will grow. And I think it'd be lovely one day if it's making sufficient that you can actually break away from your other income streams and actually generate sufficient to allow you to grow your collection, but also take a living off it. I think that would be a lovely goal to be able to achieve. If you can, that might be your game plan. But it's nice to know that, like me, I'm not relying on my snakes to pay the mortgage or to pay for the food. You've got other, and I think this is what gives us this beautiful opportunity to build a business for the future while you're running in parallel to your other jobs. So it's kind of like, it's a nice way of gently easing out of one job into another because you're just gently testing the market as you go. And every year your collection's getting stronger and stronger. I mean, your plans, I was just going through your 10 top breeding plans, and I think what we should do is maybe just have a little look at those because you got some really exciting ones. I mean, the one I was looking at was you've got your Enchi Yellow Belly Desert Ghost male and you're planning to make Desert Ghost highways. How's that project going? Are they happening, or what's going on with that one?
Yeah, that's a project that's going to be quite a ways down the road. We're still working on building the pieces, but the way that Josh and I approach it is when we get a snake, we want to have several years in mind what the snake's genes will bring to our project. So we're looking out like anywhere from, well, obviously we want to consider the upcoming breeding season, what are we going to get from it, but also five years down the road, what do we want to see from this? The snakes, they can be in the breeding cycle for a while, especially the males. So that's a project that we still need to either buy our hets or visuals in order to make that. So we don't have that quite yet, but we're probably this year we'll be making ivory het desert ghosts. So that could be a potential good building block because if you put that to a female, whatever we decide to get, gravel or asphalt or whatever, that increases our chances of hitting it. And maybe at some point in time, somebody will produce a super asphalt het desert ghost that they're willing to let go of. And so now we have this snake, hopefully a female we produce, ivory het desert ghost female that we produce, that we can plug a male to and hit those. Right now, we don't exactly know what our timeline is for that project, but that's something that we're thinking on, and we're looking out for the snakes that'll fit into that.
Yeah. Well, I love the freeways and highways, and to get Desert Ghost in there would be absolutely awesome. So I wish you guys well with that project. It might be a couple of years down the line, but I love your vision. The other one that interests me is you produce campfires, which is the sugar, which is the calico version. And you've got a very high white sugar. You've got quality sugar. Enchi with cinnamon makes the campfires, which are beautiful, and that's the target that you're looking for because you've got a cinnamon mystic pinstripe girl that looked quite big. Is she doing anything this season?
Oh yeah. So yeah, she might be one of our earliest clutches this season. She's glowing like crazy and she's very big. So we're definitely anticipating some good stuff coming out of that clutch. Granted, everything goes well with the incubation process and all that, but we should be seeing some. Yeah, I think, did we pair Odie to her?
No.
Crush.
We paired two different males that can give us similar outcomes. So we have an Orange Dream Enchi Calico and an Enchi Pastel Sugar.
So those are the two males that we have in that project that we put to several females that carry like the black pastel or cinnamon gene. But I feel like we paired Crush to her more.
Yeah. So we're probably going to be seeing an Orange Dream Enchi Calico boy sire in that clutch, which could potentially be like 16.
Yeah, and if you get Orange Dream into the campfire mix, then it can look sometimes when you get too many genes in there, it can muddy it up. But we're hopeful that the gene combination that we're shooting for will leave some pattern behind.
That sounds really exciting. And how far is she at the moment, follicle-wise? Do you think she's 20, 25 mil maybe?
I don't know exactly in terms of follicle size, but I would say she's probably within 2 months or less.
We're expecting in a couple months she'll probably lay.
Yeah, within 2 months or less, she'll have eggs on the ground. So.
Oh, okay, that's really exciting. Okay, and then the other one I know you love is your Exantic, and it's a TSK version that you guys have, the Exantic projects.
We have
or
the
do you have the?
VPI.
You have the VPI. Sorry, I thought you had the TS. So it's the VPI you guys have.
There's a very well-known breeder in our area that works with the TSK quite well. John Dagg from JD Constriction. So he has that stormtrooper snake that is famous all over the world. I think it seemed to catch a lot of attention both in the States and internationally. But he works with the TSK line. We work with the VPI line. So we've got a few VPI projects going on, but our main target with that is actually creating the double hets for Desert Ghost VPI. And we produced our first double hets last year, and we also proved out that we have a male that is Desert Ghost het for Exantic, which we bought him as a possible het. So that was really exciting to find out. And yeah, that's what you can hit.
That's the one. Yeah.
And so there's just so many cool things you can do with the black and white snake. They just look awesome. People love them. We love them. We'd love to see that when we pull out a rack or when they crawl out of the egg. That's just super awesome. So yeah, that's a project that we're putting a lot of into. Gorgeous project.
Again, once you put pastel in there, that is a pastel. I mean, that is absolutely gorgeous. And the guy that did the Stormtrooper lives near you, doesn't he? You were saying that he's up the road from you.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's inspiring. Have you been able to see what it looks like now? Has it changed its color since it was born?
We haven't seen it for a while. The color has changed significantly since it was born. So it started out as a super clean black and white snake, the cleanest you've ever seen, and it turned into the dirtiest black and white snake you've ever seen. It a lot of black color, but it looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing right now.
We've got to talk about your Wookiee projects, because your Wookiee projects and your little stud boy has really done the business last year, and I think you've got an amazing platform to build off. The Wookiee is one of my favorite looking genes. I think they're just gorgeous. So tell us a bit about your Wookiee projects. I know you've got a Wookiee Phantom Het Pied male, and you're trying to produce some super Wookiees that are pieds, and I think that'll be a world's first. Now, you've got two entries to that because you've got two projects leading to the same outcome, haven't you? So from what I understand, are those projects are they happening on the ground this year, or will that be next year, or what's going on with the timing?
Yeah, that particular project will be next year, but our goal for this year is to get that Wookiee Phantom Het Pied boy to a visual piebald female this year to hopefully hit the visual Wookiee pied and potentially put a visual Wookiee pied to our Wookiee Phantom Pinstripe Het Pied female that we're still growing up.
Yeah, so a lot of things going on there, but to simplify it, we have confirmed a couple of visual locks with one of those Wookiee Phantom Het Pieds to a visual pied female. So that's very exciting.
Nice.
Assuming that he was able to get it done and fertilize all the eggs, that would be something. Yeah, hopefully one of our earlier clutches as well. And if we can hit that's potentially the world's first. I haven't seen any pictures or heard of anybody who's hit that yet. We've asked around, and
there's a lot of people in the project, but I don't think
there's a lot of people in the project.
Yet, so.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing the outcome, guys, because like I say, I think it's gonna look awesome. You know, I think the other thing I want to say to everyone out there is that I think your creative judgment is very good, because you know how to not only read the patterns and how they mix, but you also read your color palette very well. So I got this feeling that your creative side is very strong, and all these projects, even though we may not have seen a super Wookiee pied, I think it's going to be outstanding.
Yeah, I think so too. That's something we get excited about, because any combination can do something that you don't expect, for better or for worse. And so for us, it's like there is that allure to hitting these combinations that haven't been hit, but you also get some sort of an idea of how it could look as well, because there's genes that play with other genes similarly. So for example, like chocolate, there are some similarities between chocolate and Wookiee, and so we can look at a chocolate pied or super chocolate pied and have an idea that at least something cool is going to come out of it. But they're two distinct genes, and so it'll be different, obviously. But that's we base it somewhat off of what's been produced, and then sometimes you're taking a shot in the dark and hoping for the best.
We're up late at night just scheming the projects in our head.
Yeah, sometimes it's like gets to super late, like 2 a.m, and Josh and I are just thinking about all the different. I'm like, I really need to go to sleep after work at 7 a.m. But Yeah, we're just like every night is when our brains wake up. We're nocturnal peoples by nature, I think. So
Okay, well, I tell you, it's exciting because you guys have got so much passion. If you're waking up at 2 in the morning, I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning. That's why I'm doing I watch a lot of the American live shows because I've got a hip problem and I can't sleep. So I wake up and I think, oh, you know what? To help me get through the night, I'm going to just watch one of my favorite channels, and I watch a live and I really enjoy it. And then I sleep for 3 or 4 hours. I've got an operation coming in a few months, but I think the ball python hobby and friendships I'm building up a great friendship base with Canadian and US breeders, and I think it will really bless us in the future because as our projects become more substantial in terms of the value of the clutches, we'll start selling each other $5,000 snakes, and if the shipping costs us $500, you don't mind spending that on a $5,000 snake. And so I do believe this will be a global market. You know, you might be selling in the US right now, in Canada, but I reckon that give it a couple of years down the line, building up international contacts and seeing what you guys are about, it'll open up a great. I mean, Justin's selling snakes all around Europe and vice versa. He's buying from Europe. A lot of the top breeders are going all over the world, and because they've got such high-end value snakes that the shipping costs are reasonable compared to the value of the snake. Whereas if we start shipping a $1,000 snake to you guys, you're going to spend £500 shipping it, and I'm thinking makes it very expensive, so it's not going to happen. But when you get to 5+, the market becomes global in my book. So I'm kind of I'm enjoying the friendships, but I'm also thinking in the future, if I build up really good strong relationships with the US and Canadian cousins, we'll have a global business because people can see my transparency as I can see yours. People can get a feel for our personalities and who we are, and so the trust levels between buying and selling to each other has to increase because of our transparency and because we're taking time to help people on the journey as well. I think it must bless us. I can't see it not blessing us. I can see it blessing us, and it may be that we buy and sell snakes from each other 3 or 4 years down the line on a global basis. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a win-win situation, you know.
Yeah, regardless, it's a win-win. And even if, I mean, the selling of snakes is a direct benefit to the business, but I even think there's so much value in idea sharing. There's stuff that we can learn from people all over the world that are, they just have different backgrounds that bring different ideas into the hobby. So I think that's one very, very valuable thing that is shared with this. Like it used to be, Patrick Saunders.
What's up, Patrick?
Watching the Dinker video. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, Patrick, I think we've all been enjoying that video. Patrick's just finished it. He's just jumped on the show. So welcome to you, Patrick. Thank you so much for coming over and supporting us. And I'm sure Patrick supports so many of us out there. He's got to be... Is he your number one fan as well?
Oh, yeah. He's there every Saturday. He's always in the comments. So,
yeah.
Really
Patrick is such a great guy. I mean, he's got so many good connections, and he's building his collection. I tell you, he's going to have no problem selling his snakes the way he's going because he's so loved in the industry. I don't see him having any problems marketing at all. Well, welcome to the channel, Patrick. It's lovely to have you here. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic. So we're going to go back to my slideshow, if I may. So we talked about the Wookiee project. We talked about the Desert Ghost Exantic Pastel project, which I think is stunning. You've got a spot nose. I think it's a super leopard or leopard spot nose Mojave.
Correct.
Now, what I was going to ask you about that, and we're going to come back to that in a second, the Dinker projects, but let's just talk about that project because I've got a Batman project. You're going to use puzzle instead of the Batman clowns, which I'm really fascinated what a puzzle would look like rather than the Batman version. That could be really stunning because puzzle's beautiful.
Yeah. Basically, our take on that pairing is like we're so behind on the clown game. We're just gonna take puzzle to all the notable clown combinations and see what kind of reaction we can get out of that.
And kind of the thinking behind that is the puzzle, the base gene puzzle on its own has the same color palette as a normal or as a clown. The thing that they do is they really change the pattern up. So if you're hitting all this really cool stuff with the clown that changes the pattern significantly, there's a lot of potential for crossover with puzzle stuff. And so we wanted to try out a lot of those color combinations that are already proven to work with the pattern disruptor into the puzzle project. And we've already seen like Mojave puzzle is just stunning.
Is it possible? Is that a boy or girl you've got there?
It's a female.
Is she available for? I mean, we've not pulled out any snake candy tonight. I wonder whether we should pull some snake candy out because we're already an hour.
I'll get her out right now.
Would that be okay? As long as she's not in shed or anything.
I think so, yeah. I think it should be good.
Yeah, I'd love to look at your puzzles and maybe look at one or two of your snakes as we talk about these projects because it gives us ideas, you know. And I always like to see what other people are doing because when I watch your channel, I'm thinking, I never thought to pair that with that to get that, and it's giving me ideas and inspiration. So that's your okay.
That's the best way to.
Now tell me what's in there. So you got puzzle.
So this one's actually not puzzle yet. We were breeding her to a puzzle male, visual puzzle right now.
Okay, so this is your leopard Mojave spot nose.
Yeah, that's the leopard Mojave spot nose.
And she might be a super leopard, but it'd be interesting to see if she is super leopard.
Yep, that'll be interesting for us. She has a little bit more of a blocky, chunky pattern than some of the ones that we've seen that had just one copy of the leopard, and so there's potential that she has two copies. But I don't know for sure. We'll see. We'll prove it out hopefully this year.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll get the puzzle out here quick and show you the visual puzzle that we're working with.
Now, is the puzzle, that is it's a recessive gene, isn't it, puzzle?
Puzzle's recessive, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Because Justin put out a puzzle on his video this week that I was interested in because when Justin makes an announcement, he's made an announcement that puzzle is his next baby.
Oh, is that right?
You know what's going to happen? The value of puzzles, they're going up anyway. It's going to go right through the roof when Justin makes an announcement and says, it's a project I'm going to get behind, kind of thing. He's already hit. You guys are, we don't have any puzzle, but we do like the look of it. So this is your, now what have you got here? What's going on with this fella?
That's a visual puzzle male. So without other genes in it, it looks like a really funky normal snake. But once you start throwing different colors into it, it really helps the pattern pop. So there's some combinations that we've seen like sterling puzzle or even just the cinnamon puzzle. It creates this really nice contrast between the lights and the dark, and so you see the puzzle pattern exceptionally well. But as you can see, it's just pretty wacky. The pattern's just wacky in general.
That's like
beautiful.
I think the inspiration for the name is the original one had like some really puzzle piece looking pattern.
Yeah, we've got the puzzle in the UK here, but is it a growing gene in the US? Is it a lot of people jumping onto it?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. It's gaining a lot of popularity, just the more combos that are hit. And for a while there, people didn't even think GHI and puzzle could be hit. I forget who it is. Someone over in California hit a GHI puzzle, and it's absolutely insane. So there's just so much more potential with it. It's super untapped.
Wow. Well, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens there. So have you got, so will you be producing hets with him and then you'll be breeding him to the hets? Is that the idea? Is it hard to get hold of a female puzzle? Is what I'm saying. Is it quite hard to get hold of a female?
Basically, we held back a lot of het puzzle females. And so our game plan is grow those up. And once they get to breeding age, we are going to buy a few visual males to throw into the collection. So that helps keep the gene diversity up a little bit more, and then we can throw some more combinations. He doesn't carry any codominant genes, and we want to get more codoms into the mix. So that's what we're going to try is buy a visual puzzle that has other stuff going on.
See, that's a really good plan because I've always thought that we've got to be so careful using the same male in the next generation. I think you can get away with 2 or 3 generations, but we bought a snake from one breeder and I didn't realize they were related. I should have asked for their lineage. I was brand new in the hobby. I didn't get their lineage. And I put them together not realizing they were probably either brother or sister or related. And all 4 of the babies came out with disabilities.
Really. Oh, no. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why now I'm so meticulous with when I buy a snake. I want to know not just the parents. I want to know who their parents were too and find out the genealogy of the snake. Because it's so easy, without realizing it, to breed 2 snakes that are too closely related and you get genetic issues.
Yep, that's definitely possible.
Yeah.
So it's with snakes, I think there's more of a buffer because out in the wild, they're not traveling a huge amount in their lifetime to get to a new gene pool. So there's some natural inbreeding that does occur. But I think it's still within the hobby a good idea to, wherever possible, mix up the genetics because then you get some of the strength from the hybrid vigor, they would call it. You just get 2 different strains of the animal. Yeah. And I think that helps keep the gene pool strong and helps kind of eliminate some of those negative genes that can impact like we've seen stuff like kinks in the back and stuff like that.
Genetic
So you
anomalies.
have your
Yeah.
genetic stuff that comes out that causes deformities.
Yeah, but I do like your approach. You're producing the hets, and then you'll source a male separate to the male that you've got that will probably have some codoms in, and you'll get your visual puzzles with the codoms that you want. And I think that's a really sensible approach. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice move. Okay, so we've spoken about the puzzle project. You've also got the pastel pin Wookiee Paradox, my favourite snake of last year. And if it's not in shed, I'm sure a lot of us would love to see this beautiful snake. Because
Josh will grab that one right now. That was a very exciting snake for us to hatch out.
yeah, I mean, it looks like a pied, but it isn't a pied at all. It's actually a paradox, and I think this is an unusual snake. It's such a beautiful snake. So let's just try and guess what's going on. Because it's got a paradox, I can see a bit of pinstripe in there.
Yeah. So let me try to find a good. This is.
It's actually a bell, isn't it? What when you produced the bell? What were the bell animals to produce the bell? Is it Mojave and Lesser, or what is it in there?
It's Lesser and Phantom.
Lesser and Phantom. Okay.
Yep. And so sometimes with that Lesser and Phantom combination, there's other genes that can show through it. So it's not always a completely white snake. Spider, for example, is one of those genes where you can see pattern coming through with a spider Lesser Phantom. So we thought we would try it out with Wookiee to see if there's anything there. And I don't know, it's not picking up super well. Sorry, the camera's not doing it justice. Oh, there we go. Josh knows.
It's gorgeous. I think there could be Wookiee in there as well, because I can see a little bit of Wookiee patterning on that paradox.
Yep, we're remaining hopeful about that. We don't ever like to assume unless we know with 100% certainty, and we'll know for sure once we breed her out down the line. But
And is that a boy? That's a girl, isn't it?
It's a female. Yep, it's a female.
She's doing really well for the hatchling, so your hatchlings are coming on beautifully. So do you feed live or do you feed frozen, or what's the situation in there?
Yeah, we've been feeding predominantly live. We are, like you mentioned, we're increasing our rodent production. So the reason why we're doing that is so we can have a consistent supply of live. We've just had trouble sourcing the number of live rodents that we need, but a lot of our snakes, they do prefer the live rodent over the frozen thawed, which makes sense. And so yeah, for our operation, it just makes sense to do the live feedings. But we have done a lot of our adults will eat the frozen thawed as well, and a decent chunk of the hatchlings that we produced will. But there's some that just don't. They're not even interested in the frozen thawed at all. It would take a while to work them onto it.
Yeah. Now, your new facility, you said that you're going to have a rodent room and you're going to expand the production of your own food, which I think is a good move in the sense that you can make sure quality is going into your animals. I mean, we rely on other breeders to give us high quality. They're pretty high quality, and we're very happy with the frozen. But you're never 100% certain what's in them, and you're never 100% sure. But when you breed your own, you know exactly what's going into them, and you know the husbandry, and you know... And I think it's really, if I had more time, I'd probably follow your suit on that one. But I know it's going to be time consuming. Have you guys costed out the cost of breeding? Out of interest, how many snakes have you got? I mean, how many have you got in your facility now?
It'd be like over 100. I don't know for sure.
Like slightly over 100, right?
120 maybe.
120-ish.
All right. Yeah,
Okay.
right around 120.
And you've got some really big girls that probably... What are your big girls eating at the moment? What do you feed them?
We usually stick to small rats, but sometimes we'll go up to medium rats depending on what's available. We generally, throughout the year, will feed smaller meals and then increase the meal size or frequency closer to the breeding season. We've seen that also has a pretty good effect on triggering the breeding cycle. And that honestly might have something to do with the breeding success that we have as well.
Okay, so this is where I want to kind of home in on your breeding success, because you're clearly getting a lot of success. Let me just talk to you. Let's just discuss the feeding of your females. Timing wise, how often are you feeding your girls as they're building their follicles? Are you feeding them once a week, and you might give them a small or medium sized rat if they're big?
Yeah, so our females are eating once a week, and usually around breeding time, we either will feed them 2 small rats or 1 medium rat once a week as we're ramping up size for the breeding season.
Okay, let's say, so once the breeding's over, obviously the females have laid their eggs and you want to get them back on food. You start them off with small food to get
Yep,
them
and we
back
keep them
into
on
it.
small food for a while. So the reason we do that is we've had too much experience where we try to get them back on this bigger food prey item that they were eating before they laid, and they will just fast. So they'll eat it, and then they won't eat again for a while, and then they'll eat again, but it won't eat again for a while. And for us, we've seen better build back for the female size when we do
Okay.
it the small meal very consistently instead of big meal once a month or whatever they decide they want to eat.
Yeah, we do the same. We try to get them back on a food. We give them a small multi to start with, get their taste buds going, get their juices going, because they've been fasting for a couple of months. And you got to gently kickstart their system again, and you don't want to be giving them something heavy. And then once they start to get into the habit of weekly eating again, or do you feed every 2 weeks or every week after they're back
We
on
do it
recovery?
every week. We just
Every week.
yeah, we err
Okay.
on the side of smaller feeders every week.
Yeah. And then as they get more confident back on food, you'll step up the prey size, and then you might feed them still. Do you still keep the girls weekly, or do you ever move to a once every 2 weeks on the girls?
We decide to keep it weekly. It's a little bit easier for us to track, and
Okay.
we've just seen better, slower growth when we do a small meal every week.
Yeah.
That's what we decided to keep it on. That works
I
best
think
for
that's
us.
quite a wise move. Jad and I had a storm hit us this last year. You might have seen our video when we thought we were going to lose our whole collection, and we live out in the forest. We had a massive power cut for over a day, and temperatures were dropping. And we've got an outside facility. We had a generator that wasn't up for the job. It maintained the ambient temperature at 75, so nothing went below 75, and they all bounced back. But it kind of postponed our breeding. It postponed everything, feeding, breeding. We didn't want to do anything for at least another 4 to 6 weeks. But our animals had a clean out. They had a clean out, and then we reintroduced small meal, and we found that the animals were looking healthier. They glowed more, and they were more muscular than fat. And I thought, okay, we've learned something from this. And one of my friends said, try feeding your boys every 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, let's try doing that. And we started feeding the boys every 2 weeks. And number one, we saved a fortune in money because we weren't feeding our boys every 2 weeks. And number two, the girls have now gone back onto small rats. And they are bowl wrapping, they are locking, they're looking healthy to go. So I think we may have got through the worst of our crisis there, and I think that they've bounced back quite well. But we were very sensitive not to get them back on food too quickly because they've been through a shock. And I think we have to adjust our plans according to what's going on in front of us. And I've now invested in a much more heavy-duty generator, which we've not had to use yet, but it's standing by because I never want to go. I mean, you've got a collection that could be worth $100,000. And you've bought like a $400 generator thinking that it's going to be your safety net, and it's not up for the job. And I'm thinking, how crazy is that? I'm an accountant. I should really know better. But we were big time exposed. And I think anyone out there that needs backup power, don't even hesitate to get a decent sized generator. Spend a few extra $100 to get the generator that you need. And now we've got a backup generator to our big generator. So if the big generator goes down, at least they're not going to go below 75.
Yep.
Yeah. So you learn from your experiences, don't you? And
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I asked you those questions because the cost of producing your own rats in the long term will come down in price. But obviously you'll have to put your time and energy into doing it. But you'll know that your animals are going to be eating quality because you can determine what you feed your rats.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know it's going to be very high quality. And all the top breeders have their own rat facilities, most of them. Justin has a massive rat facility, and he does it for a reason. He wants quality in, guaranteed.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
yes, that's kind of our idea too. Is like we trusted the sources that we were getting them from, but we wanted to know 100% what was going into our rodents. And then the bigger thing was we wanted to make sure we had a consistent supply. But we calculated it out, and basically we're saving money on producing, saving a significant amount of money on producing our own. The downside is that it's taking up more of our time. But personally, I really like the rodents, so I don't mind doing that part. And we also see it as a potential another source of revenue. So our hope is that we can defray the costs of producing rats by producing enough to sell, so that way we cover the costs of our rodents. And if that's covered, then we cover the cost of feeding our snakes. And so that's a big expense that we'll be saving on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I spoke to Jared about doing it, and Jared and I are running another business. I've also got another IT business that I'm launching. I haven't told anyone about it, but there's potentially something that's very exciting, which I'll be talking about another time. But it's, with a family, with 2 businesses, and I'm thinking I'd love to breed my own rodents. And I might just have a small colony of ASFs. I'm going to watch very carefully. When you guys get into your new facility, do lots of lovely videos for us, because I want to see your setup. I want to see how you go about doing it. I want to teach myself how to do it, because we do rely on people to ship. And at the moment, we're struggling to get ASFs. I mean, we're having to phone 3 or 4 times to get our ASFs. And I said to Jared, this is the very heart of the breeding season. We cannot have shortage in food for our animals, because this is the time they really need it. And I'm saying to Jared, we need to be on that blower regularly, calling up this guy to get us the ASFs we need. And I'm thinking, if we had our own facility, it wouldn't be so much of a problem if we had enough. And I can see what you're doing here. You're preparing for the future. If you do go full time, you're going to probably want to make sure that your collection's probably going to grow over the next few years. You're going to make sure you've got a reliable supply of rats. And I think that your quality of your animals will be maintained because you know what they're eating.
Yep, absolutely.
I think it's a very shrewd move. I know it's hard work and sweat equity, but you guys inspire me. You work your socks off. I mean, I'm sure you work so hard to keep your collection and everything else going.
Yeah, we do. It's a big time commitment, but for me, I've been doing. I mean, like even when I was in college, I would go to class, go to work, come home, do snakes, and so it's just kind of part of my life routine at this point. But I enjoy it. There's a lot of good stuff that comes out of it, and so even though it's a lot of work taking care, and sometimes the cleaning gets boring, there's a bigger payout, meaning you have a lot of really cool hatchlings that you produce because you're taking care of your snakes all year long. There's a lot of really good connections to be made, and then it also produces money for you to go do things like reptile expos where you go in person to meet people, and so there's just a lot of benefits. And so
also in the US, your rats are more expensive than ours. I mean, you're paying nearly twice per rat than we are.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Which means that you're going to save more, but also that if you have surplus to requirements and it's all high quality stuff you're producing, you're going to be making a lot of good friends with people. I think it's a shrewd move. I know it's going to be hard work, but long term, it's going to guarantee much better quality and good relationships going forwards. And also, people buying from you will know that you're feeding them quality. They're going to be buying quality snakes, and the quality shines through. You see it. And I look at your animals. We need to look at some more, but show us some of your favourite animals now, and let's just have a look and see. Oh, has my picture gone down?
Your picture is.
Let me just. My battery just died on 2 hours. Let me see if I can get. I've got my backup camera, so just bear with me. You can hear me on there.
Sounds good.
Nice. I'm going to pass the time over to you guys.
What up, please? And then there was a question, Celtic Falls. Question: is this full time for you guys? No, it's not. It's part time. We put a lot of time into it, but we have other jobs on top of this. So
okay,
we've got some snakes that we're ready to show. The first one that we're going to be showing is one of our really cool projects, which is the Sugar Project. This particular animal has fire, Enchi, and pastel in him as well, and he's going to be a future breeder for us for sure. The high whites we just can't get enough of. This is one of my favorite genes.
Gorgeous.
And the genes that are in this snake, they're very they work well together. They make the whites even higher. So this is one of our favorite holdbacks for sure.
That is a beautiful animal. I love the high sugar you guys have got. You've got high quality, what I call calico, what you guys call sugar. I've got a very high white calico too. They're beautiful animals.
Yeah, they are. Well, so it's interesting because they're probably the same gene, but they were brought in at different times. So the sugar was originally seen as a really high quality, high white type of animal, whereas the calico in general didn't have as high of whites. But what we're realizing is that, well, a lot of people have realized this before we did, but there's different intensities of the white in the calico line as well. So you can get anywhere from just a few specks of white to white almost up to the back. And we call it a sugar because that's what we bought the line as. And so we're just keeping the name consistent. But I'm assuming with genetic testing, they're going to figure out it's probably very similar, if not the same.
I think they're going to be two versions of the same animal but different intensities, what I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I believe. But they're lovely. I love calicos, and I think quite a few of our followers and viewers love sugar. And I want to welcome Key Constrictors to the house. They've got a lovely live show that I need to really invite them onto the show and maybe go on their show because they've got a lovely channel too. So welcome Key Constrictors to...
Yeah, we're actually...
Yeah.
We're going to be on their show on the 9th, coming up soon. So.
Are you? Yep. Oh, fantastic. You're going to have a good time. They know how to have a good time on there, I tell you. Yeah, that's really good news. Okay, are there any other snakes that you want to share with us?
Yep, so we have another one out right now, and this is a desert ghost. So this one is actually desert ghost het for pied. And Josh will try to show you some pied tracks if we can flip him around there. But this is just, it's beautiful. The desert ghost gene just on its own is beautiful. Obviously, there's the het pied influence a little bit in there. But a visual desert ghost looking this gorgeous just makes you so excited to put it into everything else. It's just one of the coolest base recessive genes from a color.
Has that got pastel in there as well or not?
It's just a desert ghost.
That is a bright desert ghost. Beautiful. I love the yellow version of the desert ghost.
Yeah, and I don't know if he'll lose some of that intensity as he grows. I'm assuming so. That tends to be the trend, but he's holding it quite well for the size that he's already at. He's already breeder size, so maybe if he gets bigger, he'll lose some of that. I know some of the desert ghosts end up being more of a sandy color as they age, but do you want to get out like that pied, that crazy pied? Yeah. So this animal that Josh is about to bring out is a very high pattern pied. There's low white, and at first we thought maybe it was a het pied, but its belly is completely white, and there's some nice neon oranges going up the side. And so we're like, wow, this is like almost giving us similar color palette to the Pompeii, just very different patterns. So you can see on the back.
Beautiful snake.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out what's going on, if it's just like a one-off or if there's something else going on. The het pied that produced this has a lot of that granulation on the bottom, and there's this girl's sister is just a yellow belly het pied, but she has a lot of that granulation as well. So we're thinking maybe we might have tapped into some sort of like a granite type of gene, or I don't know exactly, because obviously it's not super yellow belly because we would have seen ivories in that clutch. So we're not sure what's going on, but there's a lot of really cool pixelation down at the bottom.
Beautiful. I love it. I love the white, and then I love the...
Yeah.
So what's that? So tell me what you think's in there.
So we think this is just a yellow belly piebald. We are optimistic on the potential of dinker projects, though. So the het pied girl that we got has a lot of that pixelation at the bottom. So we're going to try to keep working to see if that's something that continues to show up in her offspring, or if this is just a lucky one. But
yeah, well, what you've got there is similar to a dinker project that Jad and I have got on the pied. It's a yellow belly pied too, and it's throwing a really unusual pattern, and we're not sure what it is. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was thinking,
yellow belly pied. For comparison's sake. Also, a couple of balls. See you at Tinley, hopefully. Yeah, we'll be there. So see you there.
Yeah, I'm going to say good night to Jeff and to Angie. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for helping us with the content. I really appreciate that. And you guys have a lovely evening. We'll catch up again. Let me just come off there. That's fine. So what we've got here, that's a yellow belly pied?
Yep. So this is yellow. This is what we would expect to see out of a yellow belly pied. This one actually had some really intense oranges when it came out of the egg. So we thought originally it was an orange dream yellow belly pied, but we compared it to a lot of other ones, and as it grew, it kind of lost a little bit of that intensity. It still has beautiful oranges, but
I love pumpkin pies.
More, out of a pumpkin pie. So that other girl, we don't know. Maybe it's just when they do have a lot more pattern that they retain, it becomes pixelated like that at the bottom. Who knows? Could very well. But you want to call it that yellow belly, really quick, and so this next snake's not going to be super exciting, but it's a sister to the pied that we showed before this one, the yellow belly pied. And just so we can show you what we're talking about with the extra pixelation down at the bottom. We produced other yellow bellies in the same clutch that didn't quite have as much busyness. So we thought maybe there's something extra going on. I don't know how well it's showing up, but you can see it's
showing good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that pixelation down at the bottom, and like right on their tail, there's that really nice cool thing there. Yeah.
Do you know what? This leads us on nicely to our next subject, which is dinker projects. Because I reckon you could have a couple of dinkers in there. You know, I mean, we think we've got a couple that we can't work out, and I think we're going to just breed with them and see what they produce. Because Let's talk about
the Dinker project topic is one where you can catch a lot of flack and you get a lot of online backlash because everybody's like, no, it's just a normal. And it's easy once you start getting into the Dinker mindset to see the littlest thing on your normal ball python and think that maybe there's potential there. For me personally, I just always think it's cool to try proving it out. If it doesn't prove out, then whatever. No harm, no foul. But even if it proves out and it's not the most amazing Dinker in the world, if somebody doesn't like it, don't buy it. That's my mentality on it. If you don't like this and you think it's nothing special, that you don't see value in it, then you're not forced to buy it or acknowledge it. So just move on. But for us, we like the potential of the Dinkers, and the picture you have right now is probably our coolest looking Dinker.
I love this girl. I love this girl. And I loved your video tonight.
Thank you.
It gets us excited because, I mean, if you listen to a lot of the top breeders who've spent years and years on Dinker projects, and they say, you know, we spent like 14 years on a Dinker project and we still haven't quite worked it all out, and it's just very time consuming. It kind of puts off us new people coming in thinking, you know what, it sounds like a very time consuming and you get nowhere with it and it costs you loads of money and it just diverts you away. And then I see you guys getting super excited about these hidden genes, and it makes me excited to maybe try myself. And I think you're a breath of fresh air. I mean, you really are. And I think you're getting me excited about doing a Dinker project, because let's talk about abstract. Now, you've called it abstract. Now, I look at the markings on that. Now, just look at the markings. There's quite unique markings there. I've never seen those patterns on any other snake.
That's what we thought as well. And we actually bought this snake from somebody down in Texas. But the story on her is she was originally an import from Nerd, a captive hatch import from Nerd. So they brought it in from Africa, and they do a lot of import animals. Freedom Breeder is another company, and what is the Florida Reptile Ranch?
Yep.
They're another company. So there's several companies that bring in a whole bunch of these ranch hatched ball pythons, and some of them have cool different colorations. Some of them prove out to be something awesome, some don't at all. So we took a risk on this snake, but we saw it, and for the price point, we were like, we're willing to take the risk on it. She's never been bred before, so this will give us the opportunity to prove out whether that or not something is there. And we fell in love with the colors.
Yeah. Just tell me roughly, if you don't mind, you don't have to tell me this, but what would you pay for a Dinker project of this nature? Are you looking at like several $100, or are you looking at thousands of bucks?
So a lot of times with the Dinker projects, if it's just a single gene Dinker and there's nothing proven out, you're looking at a couple $100. And
yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we got this girl for a decent price too is because she wasn't a good feeder at all. She was pretty skinny. It took us probably like 6 months before we were actually able to get her up to breeder size. So that's another reason why some people let go of Dinker projects for as cheap as they are sometimes.
And yeah, if the gene's not proven out yet, then you can't really slap a high value sticker on it. If it's proven out, then you still don't know all of the stuff about it, it's still in the early phases, you can charge more because you know it's going to pass on the pattern super crazy or whatever. But
would you recommend? Would you recommend going for a girl or a boy?
It really comes down to personal preference. We really like having a female if it's already well started, because that way you have a chance to prove out the super form, if there is a super form, a lot faster. But the male, if it's a hatchling, you're going to be able to prove that out a little bit faster. The males get up to size faster.
And also, I think my perspective, beggars can't be choosers. If there's a absolutely insane Dinker, I don't care what gender it is, I'm grabbing it up. You know.
Yeah. That makes sense. In other words, see what the market, and you've got to. I mean, there's an art in picking a Dinker as well, isn't there? So you've got an eye for it. So tell us the process of when you're selecting a project, because you could be given lots. I mean, on Morph Market, there's always all these Dinkers out there that people have been playing with and they're ready to sell them. Maybe they've not had the success they're looking for, or maybe they just don't have the time. How do you go about deciding which of those you go for? Or would you go to the guys that are actually producing them at source? Or would you buy from a breeder that's already got one? Or what would you recommend getting into a Dinker project? How would you go about doing it?
It really depends. So for us personally, we would prefer to be on the really early side of proving it out, because the benefit is that you're not paying as much money for it. Whereas if it's already proven out, then you see what the offspring look like, and the people generally charge more money for it. So for us, the Dinker project is a really fun side project generally. And so we're not spending a whole bunch of money on it. A lot of times the Dinker projects will go for slightly higher than normal prices if they're not proven out yet. So our take on it is like, we see something cool that we think can work into some of the projects we have going on, we're gonna try that animal out. But always it comes down to it has to be a reasonable price, or it has to, like, if it's already proven out to us, then it's just like we consider it a different gene, and so if the price tag is high, then we're going to treat it as an established gene. But yeah, I think for our selection process, we just look for things that we like. If it's not an established gene yet, then we're like, yeah, might as well pick something that could work into our projects. And if it's a super slight pattern disruptor that we don't think we can do much with, then we're not going to buy into it. But something like this girl, we're like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to get it. There's a couple other projects that we're considering dinkers that just kind of popped up out of our breeding. So I spent a lot of time studying every single individual animals and comparing clutch mates. That's just one of my favorite things to do. And so I'm able to pick out these really nuanced differences. That's kind of how I feel like I've developed my eye. Some people look at them and they're like, oh no, you're just seeing things because you want to see things. I'm like, that's fine if you have that perspective. But for me personally, I do see something different. If it ends up being something that turns out amazing, then we're going to definitely show it off down the road. But if it's just a super subtle thing, we'll acknowledge it, and anybody who finds value in it can partake. Anybody who doesn't, so be it.
Yeah, our perspective is we're not going to bash anyone until it proves out, because honestly, the only good can come out of people producing more genes. It just adds to the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like what you're doing, because I think we've got a couple of dinkers that we've produced out of our... And they look like normals, but they're not normals because there's something else going on. And I've got this feeling that with the new, we talked about shedding process. Let's say, for example, you give that shed of your abstract girl to that doctor who's got all these students that are studying it. And let's say they come back and say, there's a gene in there that we haven't mapped yet. Or there's 2 or 3 genes in there that they haven't mapped. But then if enough people send in their dinker projects, will she be able to get a mapping of potential genes that are hidden?
I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a possibility. From my understanding, that they're at limited capacity for what they can do. They have new students coming in every semester to help out with the projects, but they're only one lab that's working on it. There's definitely the potential, but I think they're so early in their projects at this point in time that they're going to focus on the genes that are very well established and they can get a lot of samples from. But down the road, there's definitely the potential for that. They are capable of identifying something that's different than the typical normal. But at that same token, like, a lot of normals will be showing slightly different gene combinations, even if they're not showing a visual pattern difference. So that's where it could get tricky.
What I'm finding fascinating is that normals have obviously crashed in price, but I'm wondering whether there's some hidden treasure in these normals that if we get to the point where these genetic tests are very cheap and we want our sheds analysed of all our normals as well as our other collection, and they tell us that there's something different going on in these normals, potentially I wonder whether there's a lot of hidden dinker projects in our collection that we don't even know about.
I mean, the monsoon gene was a gene that just popped up by chance. They didn't know that this gene existed, but it was 2 hets put to each other, and it's like, oh my god, this snake's insane. Another example of this is like with the lightning pieds, the MJ Xanthic line up in Canada. They popped that out without knowing they were carrying Axanthic, and it turned out to be incompatible with already established lines of Axanthic. So just think of how many more possibilities there are. From that perspective, there's so many hidden recessives that have never just been proven out because they haven't put animals carrying that same gene together. So what up, odds?
So Jeremy's in the house. Welcome, Jeremy. We've lost one Jeremy, so we want to say goodnight to Jeremy Warfel, who's got his tea, I think. And the thing is, there's 3 time zones in the US, isn't there? I'm trying my hardest to... it's midnight. It's just gone midnight here in the UK, but I try my hardest to run the shows so that I can get as many US people, because when you guys do your shows, it's normally like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning when they start, and I finish at 3. So I thought if I start at 10 over here, you guys will be able to kind of jump onto the show because it's going to be the afternoon or early evening, and you're still going to be able to have some time later in the day to either get a bite to eat or... And I want to thank you guys for actually giving up so much time, because it's probably your tea time. You probably haven't eaten for a couple of hours, and you're probably getting quite hungry now. I'm thinking to myself, although we've been going for 2 hours...
After the show.
Yeah, I hope you guys I'm not too hungry, but I think we are getting very close to the end of the show, and I wanted to just cover a couple of other points, if I may. And let's just have a little look and see. So thank you for sharing your Dinker projects. I'm certainly keen to have a go, and anyone else out there, at least, you sharing your story helps us understand the process of how you got into the projects, the costing of the projects. We didn't really ask you the approach you're taking. So you've got this girl has locked, hasn't she, this season? So, and what have you paired her with? Because she's got this very similar gene to we've got this gene called the SAR gene in Europe.
Yeah, she does.
Which
for sure.
And she's quite a dark gene. So what have you paired to try and produce? What have you paired to her to try and see what's going on?
So there's this typical approach to Dinker projects that had happened for a long time, where you just want to pair a normal animal to it to see if you produce anything. Because if you put another pre-established morph to it, it can whack out the pattern a bit. Our take is that we wanted to see if it would do something with the recessive genes, so we could see that there might be some sort of a influence from the recessive, but we will still clearly be able to see what's going on. So we decided to put a puzzle male to her, actually.
Yep, the one that we showed you. And then our plans with that is we can grow up hopefully if it proves out, we could grow up a male from that clutch, put it back to her, maybe make a super in its posset puzzle, and just get puzzle into the early lineage so that it can take us that much further down the road.
Now that's clever. That's a clever approach, because you guys got this gut instinct thinking there's something's going on here, and if it's a brand new gene and you've got puzzle in there, it's only going to add the value. Very sensible approach. I quite like the fact that you are putting in a high quality male to her, knowing that even if she doesn't prove out, you're going to get some het puzzles, worst case scenario.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is a great problem to have. But if she ends up proving out and you find that she's got a co-dominant gene that manifests itself in the offspring, whoopee. It's like,
Absolutely.
And you've named it Abstract. Is that a name that you've chosen, or is that did she come as Abstract, or why did you choose Abstract for the name?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I was just looking at her pattern. I'm like, gosh, this is just abstract. I don't know. It was just
so it was just by chance. We came up with the name. We originally named her Shadow, and so we were calling her the Shadow Gene, but I think we saw something that somebody else was calling theirs Shadow or something. I can't remember exactly why we couldn't use that name. So we're like, we got to think up a new name. But Josh was just looking at her one day. He's like, wow, this is pretty abstract. It's not like anything else. And so that's actually that's how we came up with it, and it's stuck.
I like the name because you probably heard in the UK we an abstract called Marmite.
Oh,
have you heard of Marmite at all? Have you ever tasted it? Yeah,
I've never tasted it.
It's dark and black, so your name might have a double meaning, because if she ends up producing another dark gene, which is a lot of breeders want dark contrast. Mm-hmm. So there's another value to having her, because if she does produce something like chocolate or SAR, or might even be allelic with these animals, depending on what's going on. You might have something that's allelic to chocolate or allelic to SAR. You never can tell with these things. So this is what's so exciting about it. But you're going to be putting the puzzle, which is that animal's quite bright, and you're going to be contrasting it with the black. Mm-hmm. So it should pop. You should see something from that, if not on the next generation. So when you choose your projects, you want something that's going to give you a visual cue. You don't want to be putting another dark gene to it, do you? Because it could confuse the water. Yeah, so what you're doing is you're putting it to an animal that's going to make it pop, so you can see what's going on. Is that the strategy?
Yeah, exactly right.
Because you're teaching me. I've never done a Dinker project. This is all new to me, and I think, to be honest with you, most of us out there are new to the hobby, haven't got a clue about how to go about doing these Dinker projects. And I think this is really helping me. Hopefully it might be helping one or two other people out there that might want to get into one, or they might have a Dinker project that's been produced by one of their clutches, which is quite common nowadays. So thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that time with us, because it's very informative. Now, in the last closing part of our show, let's just have a look and see if I can... Males won't lock. Now, that's a topic that a lot of us are experiencing at the moment, where I've got 3 or 4 animals that aren't locking. I'm being patient because we have a pied ghost project. I know you guys like your pieds and ghosts as well. So we've got this firefly ghost boy that's double het for pied and ghost, and he's a firefly, he's a stunner. And we put him 3 times to his female, which is a double het ghost pied girl, who's really big and she's got follicles, everything's happening. For 3 months he hasn't locked. Last week he locked.
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't do any tricks. We didn't mess about. I know there's lots of tricks in the book, which I think you speak to one of my mentors who's 20 years in the hobby. When I was telling him about all the different tricks that we could do, he was saying he doesn't believe it at all. He doesn't believe these tricks work. And he said, your best bet is the rhythm of the room.
Yeah.
But I know people put in, like, they put in the sheds of another male, they take them for a drive, they put all these things on them.
Mm-hmm.
And he this breeder who's, I won't say his name, but he's been telling me it's all witchcraft and magic. He thinks it's all witchcraft and magic. But he says he gets his results by putting in a stud male and breeding in a group and doing the rhythm of the room.
Sure.
And all the hormones kick around. And he said that they'll eventually go. You've got to stay with it. And so the boy that I've been breeding has gone. It's taken him 3 months. But I've got a dreamsicle boy that is as stubborn. He eats like a trooper. And that's the problem, is I probably overfed him. He's about 1,500 grams. He's a lovely He's a beautiful dreamsicle boy, and I've got a dreamsicle girl, but he will not lock with her, and I want to produce some dreamsicle babies. And I'm thinking, he's still got 3 or 4 months yet, but I checked her follicles, and they were only about 8 or 9 mil. So I don't think she's quite sexually mature, because I think the boys want a cue from the girls. I think the girls are going to let the boy know when she's ready.
Yep, I think there's something to that for sure. I mean, so a lot of times it's the girls that are bigger that won't lock, or the male, we put him in with several females and he just is not interested. So
yeah,
we've tried some of these tricks, and some of them might just be witchcraft and it's just by chance that it lines up, but some of them we've had success with.
I mean, we only share the tips that have worked for us personally.
Yeah, and so especially
so tell me which ones have worked for you. Tell me the ones that have worked, because I'm getting like different feedback from different people, and it kind of, I've tried them and it hasn't worked for me yet. But I shouldn't give up on it, because it may work, but yet then I've got an experienced breeder telling me don't bother, and I'm thinking, I'm getting pulled here.
It's like the experienced breeders that are in this hobby have been doing things their way for however many years, and it's worked very well for them. And so why would you change anything that's working really well for you? That's my take. And so I will listen to their advice through and through and respect it absolutely. My other take is that I like to try different things out. So even if it's not proven or if it seems goofy, if it's not going to harm the snake in any way and could potentially benefit the project or the process in general, I like to try it out. That even comes with tweaking around different husbandry things. So I like to try this experimental approach. And if I find something that works that's different from how people have been doing it for years, I want to play around with it more and see if that's something that could benefit the hobby overall. And so I'm more likely to try out these untested theories. But I would say for us, the one that has worked time and time again is introducing the scent of a different male, or sometimes even female. Just if you have an extra shed laying around and you put that into the cage, that sometimes will get the juices flowing. Otherwise, like our Wookiee boys, we have 2 that are Phantom Wookiee Heteropide, same genetic combination. So we actually have put 2 of them in there at the same time, and that gets them going. We've gotten one to really pick up the breeding, because you put 2 of them in there, and for some reason I don't know if it becomes a competition or what, but that just gets the juices flowing.
That's incredible.
For us, that's the method that's probably worked more times than not. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because I'm the same as you. I think sometimes we do have experienced mentors that are guiding us in a particular way. But I do think we've got to be open-minded, and also our mentors can learn from us as well. It's a two-way traffic. Yeah. In other words, a new person on the scene that really hasn't got a clue, myself I'm talking about, not you guys, but myself, who's learning, will be more experimental. I'm experimenting with animal behaviour. I'm going to build a play area for my snakes, which cuts across the grain with a lot of traditional breeding, but I do think that they've got personality and there's a connection bond with them. And I think that I can prove this by producing a play area for the snakes that want extra exercise and allow them to move in that area. And I will show that they will breed successfully. I'm hoping they'll breed successfully once I build the play area, and they'll produce healthier clutches because their stress levels will be lower because they get a chance to exercise and they'll be fitter. So I do think you can overhandle a snake and you shouldn't touch certain snakes during the breeding season. I get that. But I also believe that each snake has a personality and there's a behavior that you can connect with them. Absolutely. I learned that as hatchlings. I mean, you take a hatchling, for example, that is a little bit nervous to start with. If you handle that every day for a few minutes, it will eventually come out of its ball. It will eventually crawl up your arm. And it will eventually smile at you almost and say, "Thank you for being my daddy." and you'll get a bond with that snake if you spend time with it, I believe. Now, I've tried that on my hatchlings, and I've gone from striking hatchlings to tame hatchlings because they've been socialized.
Yep.
And they still lock and they still breed and they still do what they have to do, but they've got a relationship with their owner. And I choose to do that because my collection is, well, Jad and I share it. It's 160 animals we're looking after right now, which is quite a lot. But we still try to spend time with those snakes because we want to bond with them and we believe it's good for us and it's good for them. But some people don't really believe it or value that, or don't actually think that is the case, you know. But I'm finding it differently. So yeah.
To that. But so when I was in high school, I'd have people over every single weekend just about, and they would come and play with the snakes, handle them. We had them out of their cages, and it was good exercise. It was a good way to habituate the snakes to the human touch. And I really loved showing people who were not in the hobby these animals, these awesome animals. And a lot of them got interested. Sometimes they'd even get their own snake. They would start buying snakes because they just loved it so much. So for me, that it was a very valuable experience. But a lot of my female snakes that I raised up from that hatchling level, they breed super well, and then they handle super well. So they absolutely can go through this and have enrichment and still do quite well. There's people that keep them in bioactives and they breed just fine. And it's a lot bigger of a space, but they just provide enough different hiding spots so they can go through their natural behaviors. And so, like, I think there's a lot. I think a lot of people just get defensive because they don't want to change the way that they're doing things because it has worked. And so that's fine. That's definitely one perspective. But I also think there's a lot more that's being uncovered, especially by people who don't have as big of collections. They're experimenting with more enrichment, and I think that will add to the hobby down the line.
Yeah, Jace, thank you for sharing that, because that opinion aligns with mine, but also it makes me feel really comfortable because you can sometimes start doubting your own instincts if enough people tell you this, and that to have it from you guys who have shared your snakes and you've been on a much earlier journey than me in saying they can breed fine and they can be handled. I mean, every snake's slightly different, and you've got to be sensitive to their needs. There's times to handle, there's times not to handle. And I get that, but I don't think we should put a blanket rule on everyone and say, this is how it is and this is how it should be done. And this is what happens, is that people can fall out sometimes over small issues of difference of opinion. And I've always said, everyone to their own. You know, what works for me may not work for you. You might be in a different environment, you might have different setup. But I think it's really important that we respect each other's views. Like, the fact that you want to do some shedding and you put two males together, for example. I mistakenly put two males together about 2 years ago, and all hell broke loose.
Oh yeah, you have to watch it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, what happened was I bought what I thought was an Enchy female, and it turned out to be an Enchy boy in the end. And I took forever to get him up to size, or her up to size, thinking she's ready. And I put a boy to her. And I thought, what on earth is going on in that rub? It was knocking and banging. It was like someone was having a fight in there. And I thought it was two boys having a go at each other. Yep. And I got Jad sexed them, because Jad does all the sexing, and he sexed them and said, Dad, you've got two boys here. And I thought, oh no, the person sold me a boy, not a girl. And I learnt my rookie lesson in my first year. And when you said to me, oh, I put two boys to get them going, I'm thinking, part of me says, I would never put two boys together because they were fighting.
Sure.
Yeah, but now you're telling me you've done it successfully and you've got locks. And I'm thinking supervised putting boys together might work, in which case don't write it off. You know, that might be another approach to think about. And I think it's interesting. You've got me thinking now. But yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just see what else we've got here. So what other things have we got? I was going to just see. Get rid of fruit flies. I'm really glad that you put out a video there, Josh. I'm sorry about the quality of the image, but I've just blown up your thumbnail. But it kind of reminds me what to talk about, because one of our guests and one of our visitors on the show said, would you please ask your guests to explain. And of course, I didn't realise that you had a video. I haven't seen that video. And I thought to myself, we can go and watch the video. But in a nutshell, how do you guys get rid of fruit flies?
Yeah, we just use all sorts of different traps and different contraptions. That's the main way to mitigate them. We haven't fully ever gotten like completely rid of them, but we can get pretty close to dwindling
I'd
them
say
down.
with the only time I think we've ever for sure got rid of them is when we switched everything over to paper towel, and you clean instantly and you have all of your traps set up. That's when we've gotten it to basically none. But for us, a lot of times with the climate we're in and the facility that we're in right now, they can just sneak through. When people open a door, they'll sneak their way in, and they love the cocoa husk bedding that we use. They thrive in that. So we kind of have to go through our pros and cons with it, and we've decided the humidity levels that it helps us retain is worth it. It helps with our breeding cycle. It helps with feeding and shedding. So it's worth using that bedding and employing these mitigation techniques.
So you keep with the cocoa husk, but you basically have traps in your rubs?
So in the room, we have what is called, it's like sticky fly tape. And so this ribbon that has some sort of a sweet smelling attractant. We can't really smell it, but it's enough to allure the gnats or the
I got you. Okay, yeah.
Flies. And so they stick to that. That's a pretty common method. And then we also do window traps. That's the same kind of deal.
Yeah, and then one that's pretty interesting that not a lot of people use is like an electric fly trapper. So we have this thing hanging up, and from time to time it'll just zap. And
yeah, so
that's what we've got in our facility. We've got an electric zapper. Unfortunately, it zaps moths that get in, so we stopped using it because I didn't want to kill the moths. But yeah, we're very fortunate now because I think we use paper, but we create an ambient humidity of about 60% in the facility.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we top up our shed animals by another 10% by spraying down their paper.
Yeah.
And they're shedding perfectly okay, and they're breeding perfectly okay. That works for us.
Yep.
Now, everyone to their own. But what I'm thinking here is that there's lots of different approaches to this problem where I mean, we still have 3 of the 160 are on cocoa husk because they won't eat unless they're on it. You know, so you have to be flexible.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Sorry,
absolutely.
yeah, I'll cut you off there.
What
Sorry.
we're hoping to do in our new facility is achieve something like that, where our ambient humidity is to the point where we don't need to worry so much about keeping every individual cage at the right humidity level. We're just not in a place where we can manage that at the moment. But I was going to say the third technique that I think we talked about 3 in that video, 2 or 3, or I can't remember how many. But it was a while back. But the third thing that we do consistently is we use apple cider vinegar in a cup and then just put small holes in there. And then you could add a drop or 2 of Dawn dish soap, and that'll also act as a very successful trap for these fruit flies and the fungus flies. And so
there we go. So that was a question that was given to us by Dave Karp. So Dave, he may be watching the show. I'm not sure if he is. Hopefully he said he would be. Hopefully that gives you a few ideas, and also please go and jump on their channel to get the full lowdown on that one, because they've got a whole.
Apple cider vinegar is actually, we've learned since, is the organic with the mother, they call it. So it has part of the organism that helps turn the apple cider vinegar into vinegars. It's part of what happens in the fermentation process.
Okay.
So they're more attracted to that than refined apple cider vinegar, which kind of makes sense. There's probably more just the raw smell.
Okay. All right. Well, that's lovely. Now let's just see. We're getting close now. 1,000 gram wool. I just wanted to get your opinion on this one because I've not had too many girls that have hit this 1,000 gram wool, and I'm wondering whether it's a psychological thing in our heads or whether it actually happens. And I just wanted to get your take on that and let me know. I haven't watched your video. I should watch your video first, but just very briefly, what's your take on the 1,000 gram wool? Why does it happen, and how do we get over it?
Yeah, so why it happens is somewhat of a mystery. There's theories that the snake has this instinct that it shouldn't be growing as fast as it is, and people are power feeding their animals. So if they're eating too much too often, they will go on a fast on their own time. And so that's one theory that exists. The other is when they're hitting that 1,000 gram range, they're getting right before their sexual maturity size. Obviously, 1,500 grams is where you kind of want them to be. But sometimes when they hit the 1,000 gram wall, and we say 1,000 because it happens anywhere from like 800 to 1,200 grams generally.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can stimulate them out of that with the breeding. But I don't have 100% reason why it happens, and I'm sure it's different for every individual snake. Some people don't experience it at all, but we have experienced it in our collection. So they just will stop eating for a month, 2 months, sometimes longer.
Yeah, I think it's a common issue amongst breeders, but we've had a couple that have seemingly hit this wall, and I'm one of these guys that I really want to know why. And you've explained two possible reasons, and I think there's another guy I've been watching who reckons that he believes that they're going through the preparation, like they feel the maternal instinct in the room, the rhythm of the room. So if there's other girls that are breeding and giving off all their hormones, these girls are picking up those hormones. These are new girls coming on. They're developing their sexuality. And he was saying they are practicing learning how to cope with the fast when they go through the breeding for the following year.
Too. That kind of goes with the most recent comment. I believe it's because they're getting to be sexually mature. Yeah, that's a very interesting take. And that'd be a neat experiment to do, is like have two different rooms, one for your big females and one for dedicated to the smaller animals, and then do some crossover and see if there's an impact.
Yeah. Now, we've got a couple of girls. We talked about letting them mature 3 or 4 years. We've got a couple of girls that we're breeding that are literally 2 years old.
Yeah, yep.
And people might say, "Oh, ouch, that's a bit tight," But
I mean, 18 months, they can even start locking as early as 18 months, depending on the individual animal. Some of them develop faster than others.
Yeah. So we got 2 clown girls that have basically never hit a wall because they were running too fast. If a wall was in the way, they just blast through it. I mean, but they're from part of Africa, which I think genetically they're big anyway. In other words, we've got to remember that each snake could be from a different location, which means that you could be in a situation where if you've got a snake which is genetically big from a location in Africa where they grow very quickly and very big and they get sexually mature quicker because of the area they're from, you might be blessed. Like Colossus, for example, she's genetically very big. I've got snakes similar age probably, but they're half the size. So what we're saying is that we need to be open-minded as to what we've got in our collection, because some will be picky small eaters that maybe are just used to being smaller than usual, and others are going to be Goliaths, And I just think that you've got to kind of be open-minded. So my feeling is that the 2 girls that we're breeding with are only 2 years old. They're 2.4 kilograms, and they've only been fed once a week, one small rat. They've been feeding the same level as ever, but they retain more of it. Their genetics are such they don't poo out a lot of. If you're getting too many poos, what I'm saying is I think that some snakes can retain more of their food than others. I think there's something going on.
Yeah, there's that genetic component that comes out. We have some of our Xanthic girls are on the smaller side. They're never going to get bigger than 1,500 grams. One of them actually laid just shy of 1,500 grams last year, but she's 4 years old. She just genetically, she's a smaller snake, and we have a couple of them that are like that. Some of them, they blast off right away in that first.
The 8-ball complex in particular, we have freaking snakes in 1 year up to like close to 2,000 grams, and they're getting fed
the same.
That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but they're getting fed the same as the snake in the tub right next to them, and they're growing exponentially more. So I think there's a lot of merit to that. Absolutely.
So I think the rule of the game is play it by ear. What I use the force. You've got to kind of use the force for your instincts. You've got to just read it on the ground. And I think Conwick, who's on our show last week, came up with some great questions. But he's got a massive collection, and he's a very experienced breeder. And now he thinks that they hit the wall because they're getting sexually mature. But also he said that he had an experience. I actually had a female last season that quit eating at 1,100 grams. Then I put a male in with her, and she locked a bunch. Then she started pounding rats. And by the time she laid 5 eggs, she was right back on it. So that's interesting. Now, that's a very interesting approach, because they do say you shouldn't really be locking an animal or breeding an animal at 1,500. But sometimes I think I've experienced this, where I had a girl that was on 1,500 and she wasn't budging. I thought, right, she's just about big enough to breed. I put a male to her, and she gave me a beautiful clutch, and she got up to 2.4 kilograms before she gave me the clutch. She pounded food. She couldn't get enough of it. She nearly took my head off. And I think sometimes there is an argument that says, and you've got to be careful with this one, but put a male with them and see what happens, and then gauge her reaction. And in my experience, when I did that, I got an animal that produced a perfect clutch, and she is now ready to lay me another clutch this year, and she's like close to 3 kilograms. And I'm thinking, she was a bit of a fussy eater, but I put a male with her, and it worked.
Yeah, I think that next comment is really interesting too, and it's an important thing to keep in mind. Is She was 1,100 grams when she laid, but between the time she started eating, 1,100 grams when she was paired. But before she laid, she had eaten 19 rats, most of which was used to make the babies. That definitely makes sense. That checks out because, yeah. And then because she was about to get busy with egg making, that's how JKR breeds as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
some of the bigger breeders are coming out with that.
Their philosophy is like in the wild, they don't start breeding at a certain weight. They just start breeding when they're ready for it, you know?
Yep. And so if you have a girl that's ready for it, then she'll start locking. If she's not ready, she's not going to lock. The male's not going to lock. Or even if it does, nothing's.
Yeah, and even if they do start developing and they're not ready for it, they'll just reabsorb. That's in their nature, you know?
I think the only danger we've got, which I experienced last year when I was on the edge of 1,500 grams and both girls gave me slugs. I got 16 slugs off 2 girls and took quite a lot out of them. Even the slugs took quite a lot out of them, and I'm having to rebuild again. So I guess what I'm saying is you've got to be open-minded, but you also have to be cautious and careful about an animal that's on the edge. And I said to myself, I'm not going to actually push a girl too hard because of what I experienced. And I think
it comes down to like you have to gauge whether or not you can risk that, because it is a risk to a certain extent. If you're going to be producing slugs, then you have to understand that it can set you off. If they're already small, they're producing something and it's not good eggs, and then they're going to be small again to start off the next season. Is it worth the risk for you? For some people, they don't want to see the snake not eat, and so they try it out. For some people, it's just not worth it, and they'll just wait out the fasting period.
Yeah, that's interesting because we got some comments coming in now. He's saying they kept a different male sperm stored, and they go back and forth with what sperm she wants to use, and that's interesting. So she can retain the sperm even if she doesn't actually go for you. The locking may not necessarily be a waste of time, because even if she doesn't go for you, she might retain that for the following year. So it's interesting to see what people's experiences are. Okay, let's sorry about this. I'm just gonna yeah, there we go. Quick chat on your racks. Now, you've got some quality racks there, guys. I'm really impressed. I'm thinking that's probably helping with your success, because do they hold the temperatures well, and are they holding humidity well? And do you think there's an advantage in having a non-clear rub rather than a clear rub? Does it give them more privacy and more protection? Yeah, tell us your take on that and what your thoughts are on that.
Talk about temp, I'll talk about guys. So from a temperature perspective, the heating element is just a lot better for us because it's an 8-inch heating panel. It has insulation on the bottom, so you're losing less heat to the room, and that means more heat's going up into the tub, as opposed to a lot of the racks will use like a 3-inch heat strip or even smaller wire. So for us, this works out quite well. That being said, it's another one of those situations where it depends. You don't have to have amazing racks in order for your snakes to produce. My first clutch was in a small PVC rack, and I actually incubated the eggs in that rack. So that was the first. I was like, wow, there's a lot of really good knowledge out there, but there are ways to do it that are different. That's what really got me into this mindset, and I've held it ever since. The entire clutch popped out well. They all hatched well, and they were healthy babies. So we decided to go with the ARS racks just because it was more of a professional look. But on top of that, from a cleaning standpoint, it's a little bit faster. It's easier to reach all of the corners of the inside instead of having to reach back in there to do all of the PVC rack sides that you can't reach. So that was another thing. And what did you want to add?
Yeah, and then I think you asked about the tubs. Does the gray make a difference? And in our opinion, it does. You don't have to worry about hide because the entire tub is a hide. The snake feels pretty secure. And
yep. So we have pretty good feeding success in these tubs. We had another rack with the clear tubs, and a lot of our hatchlings were struggling to start eating. And we had actually a very high success rate with feeding in these tubs. Mm-hmm. So we decided that from a snake security standpoint, I think it helps out quite a bit.
And then I think the last thing I would like to touch on with the tubs is the built-in water cup holder. That makes a huge difference. The snake's not going to be spilling the water everywhere. It just, I don't know. It saves us a lot of time.
It saves a lot of time.
I think Jared and I, we've invested quite a lot of money in PVC rub systems, and we built our own, like you said, to start with, and then we migrated over and got professionally built ones which are lasered, which we're happy with. Sure. They're clear rubs. There's advantages and disadvantages to having clear and closed rubs. We've got hides in virtually every single tub, which takes a lot of cleaning. So as your collection grows, I can see why the top breeders go this route, because your cleaning process, spot cleaning and water not spilling, probably is such an advantage. And the fact that you don't have to clean the hides and put hides in there is also an advantage.
Yep, for sure. And then humidity, there's a question about humidity and condensation. So the humidity stays up pretty well in there. There's enough airflow so it doesn't get moldy or anything like that. But it does get some condensation on the backside. I believe it's like 25% ventilated, so the back edge gets some condensation. But personally, I don't mind that. I like that because that helps keep the humidity up in the back. When there's enough condensation buildup, it drips back down into the bedding. So I don't have an issue with that at all because there is enough circulation.
And you got perfect. Are they holding the humidity well?
They are, yeah. They're doing it well for the space that we have. And that's another thing that you have to consider. For some people, they live in a climate where you can't really keep the humidity up in your room very easily. And so some of those PVC racks do a lot better. Or if you're keeping it in a house, in a room that's not dedicated to snakes, PVC, in my opinion, is the way to go, because then you're able to keep your humidity within that box very localized and you're not having to worry about the room in general. For us, they hold humidity well enough. We do find that we're spraying them down a little bit more often than we would if they were in the PVC racks. But our idea with this is that we are anticipating a move into a new facility where we're going to be able to keep the entire room at a constant humidity level. So that will be less of an issue once that takes place.
Yeah. The only thing I'm finding with the extra humidity in the facility is you've got more cleaning to do in the facility, because mold can build up windows. We're finding we've got to clean the windowsills down. The windows can be drenched with wet because it's cooling and condensing against the outside wall. So although that's going to save us a stack of time in spraying down every rub,
there's still
you've got to bear in mind you've still got to clean your facility to avoid. The other question I was going to ask you is, because I've got friends who've moved off cocoa husk because they were getting bacteria and RI issues. Can I ask you, what's your experience with your cocoa husk, and what cocoa husk do you use, and how do you avoid bacteria growth in a cocoa husk situation? What's your safety measures that you do to protect yourself against?
So we use what's labeled as rusty chip, and so it's still a sizable cocoa chip. I actually have some right here. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. So that's the cocoa chip that we're using. And
okay, let me go large on that screen and see if I can have a look.
Yeah. So it's not anything super huge. A lot of the pieces are around that size, but it's still chunky enough to where they're not going to accidentally swallow it or anything like that. What we do is we kind of go through a cycle. We do like to have our tubs dry out in between waterings, so that way the bacteria doesn't have a chance to build and persist. From time to time you get some mold growth, but you have to spot clean. You have to stay on top of your spot cleaning.
And then another thing that we do to mitigate that risk is also we do like every 2 to 3 months we'll just do a complete clean of all the cages. We'll dump out all the bedding, get a nice wipe down on each one, give snakes baths. We take a lot of steps to avoid
any of that growth. So it is a real concern. Absolutely, you have to stay on top of it. And we just when we're spot cleaning, we take out a big chunk of the bedding just to make sure that we get everything that the Poo Pee has touched, get that out of there, and any spots that are looking suspect, spots that have had too much humidity or looking like they could get moldy, we also preventatively take those out and replace it with fresh bedding. And like Josh said, we'll do a thorough clean every 2 to 3 months, depending on how the cage condition is. We kind of play it by ear.
Okay. And in terms of costings, what would be your monthly bill for your cocoa husk on 100 animals?
Let's see.
It depends.
10 blocks. Yeah. Well, it's like 10 blocks every 2 months. So
it's probably around $75 to $80 for the size that we're at right now, and that cost could go down substantially if we were buying them in big bulk orders. But so really, cocoa husk for you guys is very similar to what we're paying for our paper. There's not a lot of difference thinking about it. I asked that question because I use Blitz, which is really quality paper. It's got 3 folds.
Yep.
And it's so easy to clean those rubs because you see the wee straight away, bang, it's out, it's gone. You clean it. Every cleaning session is a thorough cleaning session. You just
Yes.
hit it.
So, yeah,
You s-
we do like a lot of our hatchlings. We keep them on the paper towel,
Yeah.
and so those are the same kind of deal. Your every single clean is a thorough clean.
Now it's a couple of feedbacks here. We've got I
No
use no
float's good.
float and I do a complete dump every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Is he
So
talking about yeah? What does that mean? I'm trying to work out what that
yeah.
means.
So no float is a brand of cypress mulch, and the way that
Oh,
it
okay,
doesn't float when the rain comes, that's why it's called no float. But it's just
okay.
your cypress mulch, and you get a decent bag for $3.25. Cocoa is could be run you up to $30 a block. It can get pretty pricey. We buy it in a somewhat bulk, so we probably buy like 15 blocks at a time. So they cut us a deal and give it to us for half that price at this point.
That's good.
But the cypress, we started on cypress, and we just didn't have the ability to like freeze off every block. The thing that we've run into is sometimes there's the introduction of pests. So like fruit fly eggs can come in on the cypress, and just other.
We're also having supply chain issues. So
Yeah,
the
that's
local
very
stores
true.
didn't have the cypress that we needed, and so in the wintertime we'd be.
So that's interesting. So of the two, if you had a choice between cypress and cocoa husk, would you go for cypress?
I really like the cypress. Josh prefers the cocoa.
From a cost standpoint, cypress makes more sense, but I think there's like a visual aspect too. I think the cocoa personally looks better, and we make a lot of content surrounded around our snake cages and stuff like that. So I like the cocoa myself. But.
Yeah.
I really like the cypress mulch. That's actually what I used for years and years and years. But yeah, it seems like the cocoa husk is a little bit more spongy, so the water that you put in there, it soaks up faster. But the cypress still does a really good job. Put cypress in the freezer. Yeah, that's absolutely an option that helps kill stuff off. Buying in bulk is stupid because of shipping. That's very true. The shipping costs are crazy, but we were fortunate enough to have a distributor that lives not too far away. So we're able to make the trip out there about once a month or once every other month to grab some cocoa blocks. So that's definitely
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because Jared and I have kind of kept with paper because we feel it's a safe option. We've got the cocoa husk on 3 animals because they feed better, and that's what they're used to. I think their breeders must have put them on cocoa.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep an open mind to this because I've never used cypress, but I've seen a few people be successful with it. And Conwick has obviously been doing this for 30 years. He's got a massive collection, and he's obviously honed his skills in on that. So I'm going to have a look at that carefully. I like the fact that you guys are comfortable with where you are. Be interesting to see what you guys do in your new facility, because obviously your population of snakes is going to grow. So
yeah, that's for sure.
You're going to have to do your maths and work out what's best for your snakes as well. It's a fine balance, isn't it, between what you spend and what your animals need.
Mm-hmm.
I always try and put the animals first, but also being a beginner, I'm also very cautious that I don't want to give myself extra problems. But I think it's working on paper at the moment. But I think cypress is. I must admit, I want to give that a go because I've never given it a go. Just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. Now, Comic is saying you got mites from something. What's it? I've got mites from a block of cocoa.
Yep, that can happen. So usually what happens is if the distributors are keeping the cocoa block in an area that is prone to getting mites, then you can bring that into your collection. A lot of times what happens is the wood mites are the bigger issue, but snake mites, if the person that is distributing the cocoa block has snake mites in that same facility, then unfortunately you do have that risk of getting from the cocoa block.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Right, let's just now getting close to closing up now. This has been the longest show I've ever had, and I thank you guys for being patient, and also our viewers, because we're covering a lot of really important topics for me, particularly because I really appreciate this, because it's nice to be able to have this chat and find out what you guys are doing, because it gives me options and it helps me understand the pros and cons, and our viewers are sharing their experiences. So I'm building up a much better picture. So I'm still a baby. I'm only 2 years into this, so I see myself as a baby. I need to learn from you guys. Let's just see whether we're getting close to the end now. So we've got crazy clutches. There's a picture. Now, what clutch is that one there? And just remind me what you hit there.
That would have been a black pastel, het red xanthic, pastel, spider, I think, to a normal.
or was that
that was a while ago. I'm not for sure.
We'd have to think back. That was from a while ago.
But those babies came out black and white, and after their first shed, they started yellowing out, and so we're like, gosh, how can we make a black and white snake that doesn't get browned out or yellow out after the first couple of sheds? And that's kind of one of the inspirations for the Desert Xanthic project for us.
Yeah. Now, I must admit, watching your videos last year, I think you were really lucky with some of the odds. I mean, you hit some fantastic odds, honestly. The odds gods were with you on that year, and
that's very true.
You know, and you're going to benefit from that because as those hatchlings grow up, the amount of holdbacks, you guys must have had a lot of holdbacks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we try to be super selective with our holdbacks because we understand there's a limited amount of space, and you want to make sure that your projects are very dialed in, so you're not spending any additional money on food that you don't have to. That being said, we do have probably like 40 holdbacks this year.
I think only 5 of those are males, or maybe less than 5 males. So a lot of females.
Yeah, sounds like you're getting geared up, ready for future production here. I can see you guys scaling up quite quickly here. So just in the last few minutes of the show, I wanted to just let everyone know that you guys have got other reptiles besides ball pythons. We love talking ball pythons, and we've got nearly 20 people with us after nearly 3 hours, guys. You're doing really well for me. I mean, I'm a brand new channel on the lives, and you know, to have 18, 19 people still with us after 2.5 hours, 3 hours is really, for me, that's a really healthy community that we're building here, and it's lovely to see people coming back each week and building. And so I thank you very much for providing such wonderful snakes and wonderful sharing of knowledge with us. It's really, really helpful. But I wanted to just add this to the stream. Yes. Now this is a beautiful. Now let me just look at. Yeah. Now, yeah, I've never actually seen one of these before, but what a gorgeous looking snake.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Now, are you still breeding these, or did you get rid of those in the end? Or I know you were thinking.
We still have these. So this is what we would consider one of our niche projects, and we definitely love our Dumerals boas. It's a different pace than the ball python breeding and keeping. They do eat and feed, so they eat once a week, and then we clean them about the same, but their breeding cycle is slightly different. They have a lot longer of a courtship, so you're leaving the male in with the female for a lot longer of a period of time, and then predicting when they when they birth their live young, because they have live young. It's a little bit harder. You don't know exactly what day they're going to go, and it could really depend. So it's not as calculated as the ball pythons seem to be. But this is a project that we're really excited about because we started off with just a pair a long time ago, and one of my buddies actually got one of the snakes. I got the other snake, and eventually I inherited that snake when he had to move. So that's how it all started, and we're now up to, I want to say, what is it, like 6 holdbacks. Mm-hmm. 6 holdbacks that were growing up. So within a couple of years, they should be ready. It takes a longer time for them to hit sexual maturity, but it's just absolutely beautiful species. We actually were really lucky too, because their prices went up significantly. It used to be, I think I got mine for $85, and I grew it up, and then by the time they were breeder ready, they were selling anywhere from $450 to like $850, depending on the quality and all of that. So cohabs and gets a litter every year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will do that. They'll cohab and they'll get litters. And this is one of those species that seems to do pretty decent with cohabbing. There's not necessarily a specific season for these as well. I'm pretty sure they can breed year round. It generally lines up with our ball python season though, just based on when we start pairing together. But yeah, you can absolutely cohab these as long as you're not having issues with the feeding and all of that jazz. And they do pretty well with that from my understanding.
So when you say cohab, because I'm a little bit new to this.
Cohab means they live together in the same cage all year round.
Oh, I see. Right.
Two snakes together the entire year. And that's for some species and for some keepers, they don't like that idea at all. It's a way too risky for them. They just find it to be, I don't know, there can be issues with this one snake bullying the other or something like that. There's a lot of different stuff that come up with cohabitation of animals, but for some species they tend to do better than others, and if you keep a close eye and have a big enough enclosure for them to get away from each other when they want, and a lot of times they will end up sharing the same hide or curling up in the same corner together.
And do you get like different morphs, or are they all
so I was actually going to talk about that. So at the moment there's no morphs that are they don't really have like codominant morphs or recessive morphs that have been discovered yet. And I think that's just because the breeding population in captivity is a lot smaller. But I know some people have done some line selection for them. And so there's a couple of projects people are working on. The one that we're really shooting for is getting more peach coloration in our June Rose boas. So you can see there's a little bit surrounding those little dark, what would be
Beautiful.
alien
Absolutely
heads called
gorgeous. Yeah.
pythons. You get some of that peach color, but we have some animals that we held back that are retaining that peach color quite well. And our goal is to keep increasing the intensity and the area that the peach coloration covers. And I think those will just be really beautiful animals. People will like them a lot. And yeah, so they need to get a few albinos. That's where it all will start. Yeah, for sure. Once they hit some gene like that, then the species will take off. That seems to be the trend with all these other reptile species as well. Once you find one more, people go crazy about it, and then you breed more and more and more. You get more eyes on it. You get a bigger breeding population, and then you hit more and more morphs. I don't think any has been as successful as the ball python story, just because there's so many codominant morphs that have popped up. So it's a little unique in that way, but there's still, like, if you look at corn snakes, they're one of the early species, leopard geckos. There's several different species that have done quite well, and it all started with the morph craze. So I definitely agree.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, because this is a brand new species to me. And when I saw it in your collection, I thought I've got to ask you about this, because, and out of interest, how many live young? But how many do you get in a?
Our past few years, we've had litters of 8 or 9, I believe.
So similar,
some people have significantly larger clutches. So I've seen some. I think the biggest I've heard of was like 34 babies in one litter. So that's a really big size litter. But a lot of those animals are well into their life. Sometimes up to like 10, 12 years old females, even older than that.
Okay. So that's lovely to know that, and it's lovely to see that this could take off and be a really interesting future business as well. But just looking at the other ones here now, again, we've got a whole bunch of, I think these are crested geckos. I can see you having some fun with these. Are you guys still breeding these now? Are you still got a few?
We do. We have a few. This is a species that we're gonna probably slow our production down on quite a bit. We have, at our peak, we probably had like 5 adult females, and they can produce a decent amount every year. But the crested geckos for us has been a challenge, because locally it doesn't seem like there's much of a demand, and we just don't feel as comfortable shipping them. They like it a little bit cooler, and to us they're a little more fragile. I know a lot of people do it with high success, but for us, we just personally don't feel as comfortable with it.
And also, like, the price of the crested gecko is cheaper than the price of shipping anyway, so
yeah, a lot of times your crested, we're not working with the high-end crested geckos either, so it wouldn't be worth somebody to buy if they're paying as much in shipping costs as they are the gecko itself. And so from a numbers standpoint, it doesn't make as much sense, and we don't want to be producing a bunch of crested gecko hatchlings that we're taking care of that are not going to further our projects anyway. This was a really fun starter project for me. I got big into the geckos when I was in college as well. So this is it was kind of a lingering population that I had, but it's definitely a project that we're going to kind of slow down on for a while. Eventually, though, if we get back into them, we want to start with the high-end stuff. So there's this really cool morph called the lily whites, and they can be quite expensive. Yeah, they can. Yep, exactly right. And so they would be several $1,000s. There's the axanthic morph, which is a newer recessive that was discovered, and it's beautiful. And they're combining that with the lily white and all these other things. There's some cherry red, I think they're called cherry bomb or something like that. They just look beautiful, and I'd love to get into some of those. They're foolproof. Yeah, it's hard to mess up with crested geckos. They don't like it too hot. A lot of them you could just keep at room temperature. You spray them down. You can even get some automatic mister system going, so you don't have to worry about that. They eat crested gecko diet, which you can mix up. They'll also eat insects as well. So it's just you can give them a good variety, or they can live solely off the crested gecko diet. So it's pretty hard to mess up with them. 5 or 6 lily whites, that's amazing. Yeah, that's one of the most beautiful crested gecko morphs that exists. And eventually we would love to get some lily whites, but I think we're gonna probably slow down on this and focus more of our time on the ball pythons, and then also we really want to spend a lot of time increasing our social media game. We've found a lot of value in the connections that we've made through Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, all these different platforms. We've had some really awesome connections. So we want to cater a little bit more time to that. And so we'll be dialing in on projects to buy us a little bit more time. And eventually, if we're able to get to the point where we take that leap and we're doing reptiles and just our own stuff, then we can kind of get back into some more diverse species.
Yeah, I think it's lovely. I mean, I've got grandchildren, and they're the kind of animals they would really love to handle. So I think there's a side to me that says maybe as Jad and I get into this hobby more, we'll probably bring in some new species more for a family rather than selling them. And I think you guys are very, what I call fertile in terms of your production. You're able to produce animals from lots of different species, which you have to be happy that you've got the ability to do that, because not everybody can do that. But also I noticed that in your YouTube channel, I think from memory looking at it, I think Josh was holding a retic. Was it a retic?
Yeah, so unfortunately, those big snakes are not ours because we can't own them in Iowa. We have some pretty strict laws that don't allow you to own much.
Oh, what a shame.
Pythons, but we can't have any anacondas or retics. So those two in our banner from the shows. But someday, if we move to a different state and we start diversifying the species, definitely retic is on our list. We love the retics. They're really big snake, a lot to take care of. And they just, it's something we'd love to get into. We just don't have the ability from the legal standpoint or the space at this point in time.
Well, I saw that and I thought to myself, you guys might be hiding some more stuff in there. But,
so the species we work with are leopard geckos, crested geckos, dumerals, boas, children's pythons, king snakes.
Because Jared wants a retic. Jared would love a retic, and we went and held one, and Jared fell in love with one of these super dwarf retics.
Yeah, yep.
And this was very small, and he would like one day, and I think I'm going to buy him one. Why is it that your state won't allow you to have these? This is crazy to me, because I don't understand it. I mean, I know that the green anacondas can be a problem if they're released into the wild, but these are responsible keepers that keep them insecure.
Yeah,
I don't understand why
the people who got to the legislators first were scared about these species, I think. So there weren't enough keepers that could stand up against it, and when they put the laws out, there's a few people who had them that are grandfathered into the ability to keep them. So if they already had retics before the law was passed, then they could keep them. But just since that passed, anybody who was big into big snakes, they just moved to a different state. I think every state surrounding us, you can have these big snakes. Just Iowa. Wow. So whoever was making the laws, somebody got in touch with them and was like, nope, you can't do this snake, that snake. They're dangerous. And it was, I think, more so just like a human concern, like human safety concern. Those big snakes, one person handling and they're aggressive, they can be dangerous.
Now, I know you guys love your shows because I've been watching. I think, by the way, you do a really good video on your. You know, people come back with their show material. I think you guys do a really good job. But I also realise one of the reasons why you guys get super excited about the shows is because you get a chance to handle the retics, you get a chance to handle these snakes, and it's your deep passion that you. When somebody tells you can't have something, you want it even more, don't you? Normally, I'm thinking
that's for sure.
I can see why you guys get excited. But have you guys ever thought about vending at a show?
Yep, we have. We've thought about that. At the size we're at and with the market right now, it just makes more sense for us to be selling online and shipping. We make all of our sales online at this point in time. I have vended shows in the past, though. We have a couple of small shows in Iowa, and one of my good buddies, Nick from Major Morphs, or is it Major Reptiles? Sorry, Nick, if you're watching, Major Reptiles. Nick Major, he's an awesome dude, and he let me set up with him a couple of times at the Iowa show. And so I've got the experience vending, and it's a whole lot of fun. We always would have the most diverse table because we had 3 guys that were working with different stuff. So we always had the most diverse table, which meant that everybody came and looked at our table. And he's big into like scaleless corn snakes and the Leachianus geckos. And if you know anything about those animals, they're super cool to look at and to hold. And so it was a big attraction always. But so we talked about it before.
Yeah,
EP5 had a yellow anaconda favorite snake, and they don't get as big as a green. Yeah, I know. They're super beautiful. I would love to have a yellow anaconda at some point in time. They're just gorgeous. Green anacondas are cool. Don't get me wrong, and they're huge, it's cool. But the yellow anacondas, there's this beauty to them that you just don't find in any other snake.
Well, I think it's lovely that you've got a passion not just for ball pythons, but you have a passion for reptiles full stop, because it's deep in your blood, that's for sure. And really appreciate you sharing that tonight. It's been a lovely show. We've gone over 3 hours, and I really thank you guys for supporting tonight and coming in and giving so much of your time. And hopefully you've made some new friends here, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers are going to want to jump onto your channel if they're not already on there. I love it, and I think you guys continue to do what you're doing, because you guys have got a bright future. That's all I can say. Really bright future.
We really appreciate that feedback, and we also thank you for having us on. We love these live shows, and at some point in time, we're thinking down the road, we'll try to figure out a way to get a show of our own, either a podcast or something like that. But we're inspired by the creators like you. I know Keys Constrictors has one. We've been on a couple of live shows, and we've just had a really good time. We were just on Adams as well from Proper Royals. So it's like you're doing some really cool stuff, and there's the people who stay watching the whole time. Big props. That's a lot of time out of their day to come on. We really appreciate that, but it's just a really good opportunity for us to connect with other people as well. So, this is quite the stretch. We have this tendency of keeping people on their lives long. We did 2 hours with MJ. We did 2 hours. Well, Adam. It was definitely over an hour, almost two, not quite. Yeah,
But you know what? It doesn't feel like 3 hours. It feels like it's been an absolute pleasure tonight. I feel like I've been in your facility. You shared your snakes. I've just got to know you guys on a personal level. And it just, when you guys do launch your live, I would love to be on your show. So please do feel free to get in touch with me. And I'd love to return the favor, because I just think we can learn so much from each other. And hopefully, as Jared and I get more and more experience, we can, and we're going to gain a lot of experience by having these live shows, because I'm learning so much from so many different breeders all around the world. And I think it's just a beautiful global opportunity to really, particularly during the COVID years where we all feel restricted and we can't go into each other's facilities. I just think it's beautiful that we can do this. And I'd like to thank all our viewers for staying with us. Just to wrap up, we're just going to, we talked about the shows, so we're not going to go there. I'm going to just put a picture of you guys at a show. When's the next show you guys are going off to?
I think next week we're going to the Arlington show down in Texas.
So we're going to go down in Texas and hopefully meet up with a lot. There's a lot of people that we see at the shows that we just love running into at those shows. So that's going to be our big goal. We're not going to buy anything. We just love to go down there, film, get some video content, and just link up with all of our friends down there. So
we look forward to.
That's going to be at the Arlington show. Definitely say what's up. Definitely say hello. We'll be down there.
Well, when Jared and I visit the US and we were going to dovetail it with a show, we'll come and meet up with everyone, because we're building up quite a nice friendship base with the US and Canadians. And when we come, we're not going to necessarily be able to go to everyone's facility, but if we go to a show, we're going to know quite a few people from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're building a great network.
I think this is fantastic. Now, these are the two snakes that we spoke about. So you can see the retic that Josh is holding there, beautiful. And then Jace, you've got the green anaconda.
Correct.
And that's lovely. And I think that just about wraps up the show. So big thanks to you guys for being wonderful, wonderful guests. Absolutely. Big thank you to all our viewers. And we've got to end with a little bit of... Sorry?
Thank you to you. I said big thanks to the viewers, because you guys are what make the show happen, and especially big thanks to Paul for being an awesome host.
Yeah,
we really love being
it. We like the slideshow method, keeping everything on track. It was a great one.
Yeah, I tried to. I'm very good at going off at a tangent. And to be honest with you, this is my 5th show, and my fifth live show. But I'm finding that the more you practice, the more relaxed you can be. But you guys have made me feel really relaxed tonight, and I've gone off script and just followed a natural conversation. I think sometimes that's the best way to go. And I don't like having a script, but I do find that the pictures do keep me on track a little bit. So a big thank you again. I'm going to close out with let me have a little look here. Yeah, let me see if I can just close out with the right video clip, and then we'll close out and say goodnight to everybody. Let's see if I can get this right. Here we go. Nice music, beautiful new logo. Please go and jump on their channel. You won't be disappointed, guys. They've got some amazing snakes. the love and energy as a brother to brother is just fantastic, and we just love your channel. And now we're going to close out with New Forest Morphs. And we tend to do a little, I tend to do a little dance. I like to dance and stuff, so. You can see I'm a bit of an entertainer in the background there.
That's awesome.
Well, there we go. So thank you, everyone. It's good night from us, and we shall catch you next time.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Peace out, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye for now. Bye.